One day, Milphie sat alone, eating monster meat that she had carefully cooked and shaped into neat loaves. A man from the Empire saw her sitting by herself, and the sight of her enjoying the food caught his attention, especially as hunger had overtaken him. He stepped down from his carriage and approached her, drawn in by the delicious aroma. Milphie was surprised. It was the first time someone had asked to share her monster meat. She quickly opened her container, filled with excitement, and generously offered him some food. The poor man sat beside her and took a small loaf, only to find that the taste surpassed anything he had ever had, feeling as though it was the best thing he had ever eaten. He admired the meat in shock, and noticed the skillful cooking and balanced spices. When he inquired about the type of meat, she replied it was from a Bekran beast. His face paled, and he felt nauseous, as he had never imagined he would eat meat from a deadly creature. A wave of sickness washed over him, but he noticed the faint mockery in her calm smile. He realized he had tasted something feared by people, left her in a hurry, unable to believe what had happened, astonished that a noblewoman would eat such poison-laden meat. As for Milphie, she enjoyed her meal, pleased that the first person to share her food admired the taste of Bekran meat. She continued eating peacefully, explaining that cooked monster meat, when done properly, surpassed the taste of lamb and beef. She wished to find someone who shared her strange passion, someone who understood her love for cooking without seeing her as bizarre. Days passed, and the king hosted a grand feast, inviting all the nobles to choose partners for their influential daughters. The place was filled with well-dressed girls exchanging smiles, showcasing themselves in the best light. As the delicate music began, Milphie stood there, her innocent face and mysterious gaze combining fear and attraction. The girls around her chatted about jewelry, the latest fashion, and the suitors accompanying them. Meanwhile, her mind wandered elsewhere, imagining what mantis monster meat would be like if grilled over a gentle flame. A sarcastic thought crossed her mind. If this wealthy class knew that the monsters they feared could taste better than their meat, their outlook on the world would change. Lady Talbot approached her with an air of superiority, seeing Milphie eating among them like someone starving, and she tried to maintain her appearance before the crowd. Milphie couldn't express that she had come looking for a husband like the other girls. The place didn't feel like her home, and she didn't fit in with those around her. She remembered her stepfather, Count Marschleiter's threat that if she didn't marry within a year, she'd be sent to a convent to live in solitude. Her father had told her at that time that he would accept any knight she chose as long as he suited the family, but she hadn't found anyone in this pretentious world that suited her. Her presence among the aristocrats felt heavy, and whispers followed her every step, as she became known among them as the noble woman who eats monsters. Everyone started to mock her and avoid her until her reputation was ruined. She ignored that and fled toward the knights, seeking a man who wouldn't recognize her, hoping he might accept her. While she was there, a horrifying scream erupted as a terrifying monster emerged from the forest, causing panic and turning the music into chaos. People fled like frightened birds. In the midst of the commotion, Milphie saw two elderly men who had fallen to the ground and couldn't escape. She rushed to them to check on them, but the man's cane was broken, and he couldn't move. She extended her hand to help him, but the beast appeared behind her, massive and predatory, and it was a type she favored, a Bikoran. While everyone else was terrified, her eyes sparkled with admiration as she regarded it as a delicious meal. Realizing time was of the essence, she tried to pull the elderly men to escape. Her only concern was not to leave them behind while trying to draw the beast's attention. At the moment, she thought death surrounded her. A mysterious man wielding a shining sword charged in and decapitated the monster in one strike, and blood splattered everywhere in the ensuing silence. That man was the Duke known as the Madman of Blood, a legendary warrior feared throughout the kingdom for his brutality in battle and steely heart. But that night, he revealed another side of himself, as he astonishingly saved Milphie's life. People stood in shock at his power, and Milphie was entranced by his features, seeing in him not terror but a hint of mysterious charm. While everyone whispered in fear, she looked at him with silent admiration, her eyes displaying a strange innocence. When he asked her if she was afraid of him, she noticed what others didn't see in Galbers. While they labeled him a bloodthirsty madman, cruel and merciless, she saw a strange beauty in his face that astonished her. This thought was snatched from her mind when she noticed the monster's blood on his face, and she abruptly ordered him to wash it off quickly, warning that Bikoran blood could be toxic due to the accumulated magical poisons in its body, and just a drop could cause severe stomach and intestinal pain. However, she clarified that this specific monster seemed free from those poisons, and its blood could be used in cooking if prepared properly. Galbers showed no interest in her warnings but was astonished by her precise knowledge of the monster world. Milphie felt a surge of anxiety, fearing her words were weighing heavily on him, so she apologized for talking too much. He handed her a purified water bottle since the monster's blood had also stained her clothes, realizing she needed cleaning and care. He noticed her clothing marred with blood and felt she shouldn't spend the day looking like that, taking her hand to lead her to his nearby home where he could offer her a clean outfit. Milphie paused, refusing to go, thanking him for his concern, and insisting she had enough clothes, feeling her current appearance was better than last week when she killed a monster herself. Galbers froze in astonishment, struggling to believe this delicate girl had managed to kill a monster. He asked her name, and she bowed respectfully, introducing herself as the daughter of Count Marschleiter. Galbers laughed warmly at her excessive formality, and Milphie was puzzled by his sweet laughter, as she hadn't expected such features on someone with his severity. He told her he had heard a lot about her, and was not surprised by her knowledge of the monster world, as she was known throughout the kingdom as the girl who eats its meat. In this world, there were savage creatures, monsters, and plants infused with poisonous magical energy, making them dangerous to humans and animals. animals, causing sickness, fever, and intense pain. Therefore, people were used to disposing of their meat. However, Milfy was passionate about it, seeing it as a unique culinary challenge. Since he knew her story, she found no reason to hide, excitedly telling him she loved monster meat. He asked her, with an evil glint in his eyes, if this monster was edible, and Galbers blinked in shock. She realized she had crossed a line, settling for a shy smile. He looked at her, feeling a strange contrast, a mix of innocence and allure, and felt a burning curiosity toward her. She was a girl unafraid of blood, monsters, or even him. He hid his face so she wouldn't catch him admiring her, then took her hand, walking away from prying eyes. Milfy felt a flutter she hadn't experienced before, for this was the first time a man who didn't fear her, or dislike what she said, had touched her hand. He suddenly asked if the monster meat she spoke about really was delicious, as she had tasted Bekron herself. Milfy hesitated, used to being seen as strange when she answered, but said that Bekron meat was similar to veal in flavor, even better when cooked properly. Galbers nodded, reminding her that if the beast was not killed in a fit of rage, its blood stayed pure from toxins, so it didn't harm those who ate it. She was amazed at his precise knowledge, as she had never found anyone discussing this with sincere passion. She was profoundly touched and felt a silent joy. It was the first time she found someone who understood her and spoke her language. She explained that removing the magic from monster meat was necessary before cooking it, which required fully draining the blood and using precise dissection tools with specific spells to cleanse the meat. Galbers listened attentively until he said something that felt like the sweetest words she had ever heard. He expressed his desire to taste this meat she spoke of, and wanted to eat it made by her hands. At that moment, Milfy's heart froze with joy, unable to believe that a man of his stature would ask her for something the whole world scoffed at. She voiced her concerns about the risk of his digestive system being affected if he ate monster meat, clarifying that Bikoron had a huge amount of magical toxins that were hard to digest because those creatures were wild, but it was different if the monster wasn't angry, as the meat would be close to ordinary meat. It could be skewered or sliced into thin pieces. Galbers was filled with excitement, determined to try Bikoron meat, unable to suppress his craving for the tasting hour. Milfy noticed his smile contrasting sharply with his usual severity, and understood that this smile stemmed from years of violence and battles he had endured. It came from his heart. Inside her, there was a feeling similar to joy, because she had finally found a partner who shared her obsession. Galbers led her, holding her hand, toward their tents, asking her to set foot on the ground and relax. A man with a patch over his eye welcomed her return and asked about the guest, so Galberis presented Milfy's lineage to Count Marschleider. The mutual respect solidified, and Galberis asked for new clothes for the lady. Milfy entered the tent, eagerly inspecting the place, where she found a wooden basin filled with water that Galberis had prepared for cleaning. An internal dialogue sparked within her regarding what was appropriate, and she suggested that Galberis wash his face from the blood first before anything else. She was shocked when he removed his shirt, and their feelings of embarrassment became mutual. Milfy felt a wave of curiosity when she had the chance to observe the body of a knight trained for combat since childhood, recalling a moment when she noticed the skill of his hands as he expertly severed the neck of a beast. They shared the bath, washing their hands together, and Milfy's desire grew to become strong enough to cut the throats of monsters herself to eat afterward. She saw training as a means to achieve her dream. Galberis doubted her weak hands could accomplish such a feat without extensive training, but he didn't dismiss the possibility of learning and practice. The embarrassment between them eased, and a promise formed that he would be the one to hunt the monsters for her to cook. A sparkle shone in her eyes. The question she had long awaited became a reality. Their hands intertwined as Galberis wiped the blood from her face, and she helped clean him. When Chaos interrupted like a spoil sport, complaining about Galberis sitting shirtless in front of a girl, but that did not dampen the day's joy. Galberis returned, proudly holding the head of the beast, which he found to be the most exciting sight, and everyone was stunned by Milfy's admiration for it. Milfy climbed onto the carriage, heading home after a busy day, and offered him a food box containing pieces of the beast's meat. Galberis took a piece and tasted it, while Kaios worried about the necessity of having monster meat tested for toxins before anyone consumed it, fearing the effects of lingering magical poisons. Galberis told Kaios to be quiet and taste the food first before judging, and he put the piece of meat in his mouth. As they both chewed, astonishment washed over them from its incredible flavor, far exceeding their expectations. Milfy looked at them in disbelief that her story had transformed from that of a girl feared by others to a noblewoman sharing her passion with one of the greatest men in the kingdom. Tears of joy filled her eyes from the kindness and acceptance she had never known before. She felt her heart walking down a new path, discovering the nature of that man, said to be a terrifying, bloodthirsty villain, hiding beneath his harsh features a mysterious beauty she had only seen in her dreams. She hesitated with the thought that she had allowed her dreams to rise above what she was used to, and possibly she was falling for him without knowing it. After this meeting between the monster-eating princess and the blood-crazed duke, Milfy returned to her family's palace, her heart overflowing with joy and confusion at the same time. She didn't know if that man had truly seen her as she was, or if he would accept her madness and strange passion. His presence in her life was a beautiful curse that made her forget her fear of people's gaze gazes, as someone approached her for the first time without dread. She was searching for meaning in life, not realizing she would find it in the eyes of a bloody man, said to live only by killing, but that gaze exchanged with her shattered every barrier she had built around her heart to achieve a hidden purpose still undisclosed. When she arrived at the palace, uncertainty flooded her between the voice of reason and the call of her heart, until she spotted her father, Count Marschleiter, signaling to the carriage from a distance, ordering her to stop. He approached angrily and violently opened the door, directing a stream of reproaches toward her, asking what she had done, and she thought his anger stemmed from her failure to attract a suitor from the nobleman's party. But she was shocked when she learned the reason was deeper than that. Her father told her that her standing did not permit her to approach a great duke, then surprised her by saying that Galberis had asked for her hand in marriage. She stood stunned, unable to believe it, while her father was confused, unable to refuse or accept, as he knew that turning down a duke's request could bring disaster upon him. As for Milphie, she continued to stare at him, unsure who among them should be afraid, still reeling between shock and astonishment. During their conversation, the crown prince and Galberis's adopted brother appeared. Galberis explained that he had sent his hunters into the cursed forest to catch a beast for a bride's dowry, but they had gotten carried away and ventured deep into the monster's territory, facing the fiercest and most poisonous ones, yet they all returned safely with a rare magical prey. Maxim spoke with a tone, mixing teasing and admiration, bridging the gap between him and his brother, urging him to treat him simply as before. However, Galberis remained reserved, bringing to mind the memory of the 17 years that had separated them since the royal family adopted him and named him when he became Duke Orsteed, while Maxim retained the title of Crown Prince. Maxim wanted to break the formality Galberis imposed, so he asked about the food basket in his possession, jokingly inquiring about its contents, then tasting a piece of dried meat. Astonished by its exquisite flavor that surpassed the palace's table, he asked about its type, and Galberis replied that it was meat from poisonous flying monsters called skart, which surprised him with its deliciousness instead of repulsing him, and he admitted it was 100 times tastier than veal. He promised to keep it secret if Galberis gave him another piece, knowing that the mysterious noblewoman the rumors spoke of was the one who created it. Galberis felt uneasy when he heard Maxim describe her as greedy, a word that had always pained her from people's mouths, so he corrected him, saying she was Milphie, the daughter of Count Marschleiter. The prince looked at him with a deep gaze, understanding that this relationship wouldn't be simple. It surpassed mere admiration. Nevertheless, he said in a lenient tone that he gave him permission to do as he pleased, as long as he was aware of the consequences of his steps. Galberis confidently replied that he had considered everything, and he would halt hunting trips until he returned. He left feeling unsettled, embarrassed by his brother's teasing, while Maxim stood contemplating the strangeness of what he had heard. Galberis remembered the moment Milphie stood before the monster bravely, blood covering her face without detracting from her beauty. Rather, it added a mysterious charm that sparked an irresistible fascination within him. He brushed off what was said about her. Her presence had enchanted him from the first glance. Meanwhile, Kaios arrived with soldiers to announce that they had finally found the intended beast, a model from the rampaging forest. Galberis's face lit up joyfully as his awaited gift was ready. Kaios jokingly remarked that he was looking forward to the day Miss Milphie would share a feast prepared by her, being sure she would present a monster to her taste, which made Galberis feel more irritated by his teasing, doubting he was the one who spread news of his meeting with Milphie to the prince. Kaios ignored the accusation with a smile, and Galberis left alone, thinking of her. He feared she might have thought that his talk about the gift was mere flattery, or a polite gesture to please her, reminding him of her tears that he witnessed. He vowed to himself not to allow her to cry again, neither because of him nor anyone else. On the other hand, Milphie was gazing at a letter sealed with the royal family's Galberis emblem. She hesitated before opening it, her heart racing violently, as it had been delivered to her by a soldier riding a rare fire eagle from the kingdom's birds. She was captivated by the mention of the bird, having always dreamed of seeing it. Then she thought, as usual, about what it might taste like. But her father interrupted her daydream, reproaching her for being distracted from the content of the letter, reminding her that she was sent to choose a suitable fiancé, not to attract the attention of a duke of higher standing than hers. She recounted what happened at the party, and how she saved 2 old men before the beast attacked her, until the duke appeared and rescued her. She opened the letter, in which Galberis had written steadily that he met her and spent a short time with her, but found her worthy of a place befitting her, hence he requested her hand in marriage. She read the words in disbelief that the owner of that letter was the same man she had seen one day amid blood and silence. The quiet, shy, bloodthirsty man whose words had turned into soft rain on her heart. As for her father, he was searching for a way to refuse an official engagement proposal from a famous duke without hurting his pride or opening the door to conflict. Yet, Milphie paid no heed to his opinion. She took the letter to her room and reread it repeatedly, unable to tire of looking at its lines. How could a person who knew everything about her and heard what people said about her still want to be close to her? For her, it wasn't just marriage. It was a rare acknowledgement of her existence. She sank into her thoughts, picturing his face in her mind, the man who had approached her amid the blood, a blend of demon and angel in one form. His gaze pierced her heart as though he could read her thoughts before she spoke them. She knew her thoughts were strange, yet he alone accepted them. She sensed a strange attraction between them, as though he'd found in her someone who understood his nature, just as she understood the nature of beasts. To both of them, life had no meaning unless one found someone to share their passion with. Suddenly, a faint light glowed from the paper, revealing a second hidden message. Her heart trembled as she read, "After you left, boredom took over my days. The time time I spent with you was the spring of my life. What saddened me most was hearing that others ate the meat you prepared. I heard winter has begun in your lands, and I will visit before the snow covers the roads on the 18th of this month." She took the letter to her father. They read it together in shock, exchanging conflicting looks. He was stunned by the Duke's boldness, while she was overwhelmed with joy. She realized the promised day was tomorrow. She felt that Galber's actions surpassed logic. A man risking his reputation and status for a woman known as the Beast Eater. Though her father's words began to plant seeds of hesitation in her heart, the letter still felt like a call from someone who truly saw her for who she was. She sat in her room surrounded by silence, held her mother's photo, and remembered her old advice to find someone who would love her as she was. She felt that wish had finally come true, yet one painful question remained. Would he accept the secret of her work at the research institute she inherited from her mother? She knew her mother's mission was not yet complete, and she had to keep walking her path till the end, whether Galbers loved her or not. The greater dream could only be fulfilled if she continued making beast meat the craft that was her passion, her life, and her inheritance. Milvi drifted into sleep and didn't wake until she heard the harsh voice of her stepmother, Shelia, shaking her as usual and reprimanding her for not dressing yet on the very day the family awaited their fate. Shelia looked at Milvi, her messy hair, tired eyes, a room buried in dust and clutter, clothes tossed everywhere. She sneered, saying that such a state did not suit a nobleman's daughter, that all she was good for was eating monster meat. Then, with mocking scorn, she added that when she asked her to find a suitor, she didn't mean someone as high as a duke like Galbers. The man who loved her, she said, was just like her, mad, beast-like, with a fondness for the scent of blood. At that very moment, a terrifying sound shook the castle walls. Milvi ran to the window and saw a huge black shadow descending from the sky. Galbers, riding a black dragon. He landed slowly, majestically beside her, telling her he had come as promised. She remembered his vow that he would bring her the gift himself, and he had fulfilled it in the most spectacular way. He landed the dragon in a secluded courtyard, and when she saw him, she felt something strange. Someone in her life could now face the world for her. Galbers hadn't waited for her reply. He had returned on his dragon, bringing with him a royal, priceless gift. A legendary beast for her to cook with her own hands. At that, her stepmother declared she would not attend their feast, insisting Milvi's father handle it, and that she would not meet a madman who rode a dragon. Anger flared in Milvi's chest. She firmly announced she had accepted his proposal and needed no one's permission. After dressing quickly, she went down to meet him. Galbers apologized for coming unannounced, explaining that he couldn't wait any longer. While Milvi was only thinking about her untidy hair she hadn't had the chance to fix. Caius also apologized for how they had entered the city, saying his lord couldn't bear to wait. Galbers scolded him for revealing what he meant to hide, then turned to Milvi, his face a mix of seriousness and warmth, asking about her messy hair. Her cheeks flushed red with embarrassment. He asked her to come with him so he could show her the gift. She was stunned when she saw before her eyes the royal beast she had once spoken of as a distant dream. She couldn't believe her innocent wish had become real. Galbers led her to the courtyard where the beast awaited, and it was the most magnificent sight she had ever seen. Before her stood the royal model, one of the rarest white beasts, but this one was different, golden-furred, gleaming under the light like a living treasure. Its fur was among the most precious, worn only by kings. Yet Milvi didn't see it as decoration, but as a grand feast wasted in the halls of the rich. To her, letting its meat go unused was unforgivable waste. Galbers stood proudly beside her, glowing with satisfaction. His gift was not merely a fulfilled promise, it was a clear declaration that he had come to ask for her hand himself. When he noticed her amazement and her assumption that the beast was still alive, he took her hand and placed it on his chest so she could feel the pulse of life within him, explaining that the beast was only asleep, subdued by a light spell. Her face brightened. The meat was still fresh, meaning its flavor would be better than ever. She began thinking out loud, debating whether to boil or roast it, make thick or thin slices, cook steaks, skewers, or even warm sandwiches. Her heart filled with a joy she'd never known before. At last, she stood before the dream she had chased for years. In her mind, she pictured a royal feast worthy of the new love blossoming in a kingdom that had never known one like it. She looked at Galbers gratefully, and their eyes met. Both felt caught in each other, each drawn to what they lacked in themselves. Her father arrived with the soldiers, thanking the Duke for coming so far. Though flustered, he saw in Galbers a man capable of understanding his daughter despite her strangeness and controversial passion. Milvi then asked her father's permission to let the Duke's dragons fly north to hunt. He was bewildered, wondering if the beast was meant to feed the dragons. She boldly replied that the beast was her meal, that Galbers knew everything about her and came to share her love for tasting the meat of monsters. Then she asked her father to allow them a visit to the research institute. The father grew nervous. He hadn't expected things to go that far. Galbers stepped in to calm him, saying he knew all that was said about Milvi, but still came to ask for her hand, urging them to hurry. As if the beast awoke, it could threaten the entire northern kingdom. He added with a smile that he himself wanted to taste her cooking he'd heard so much about. The father, flustered, immediately ordered them to head to the institute before things escalated. Galbers and Milvi took off on their dragons toward the north, the winds filling them with the thrill of freedom. She laughed into the air around her while he spoke about dragons, saying they were magnificent creatures but not fit for eating. She smiled faintly, already thinking of something far beyond the journey. When they landed at the place, the Duke noticed a magic circle engraved on the stone floor in ancient lines. She explained that it was her mother's work, work, one her mother had developed through her experiments to prepare creatures for extraction. She led him inside, where she went to fetch a cloudy quartz bottle from among her tools crafted to draw blood and energy from the beings she studied. The Duke examined the instrument in silent admiration as she explained its capabilities and the way it could shift with its own power. Then she seemed suddenly excited and asked the Duke to cut off another creature's head. Milvi decided to begin preparing the beast, admitting it was hard to handle such a large body alone. The Duke motioned for his soldiers to help her, and the Knights of Galbraith got to work, skilled hands, sharpened by years of extracting horns, claws, and hides. When they finished, Milvi placed her palms on the creature's soft fur, admiring its luster and imagining what royal garments she could make from it. But she was more drawn to what the depths of the creature hid. She lifted her heart in a silent prayer out of respect for the life that would soon leave it. The circle beneath them glowed as she activated it. In a flash, the Duke's sword gleamed as he struck the beast's head, fell before she could even realize what had happened. Her eyes widened, amazed by the grace and precision of his movement. She raised the bottle over the shining light and began her chant, her voice steady as the crimson blood surged upward into the opening. The energy pulsed violently, making the bottle tremble and the light inside shimmer as if the glass would shatter. The Duke watched in awe as the liquid exceeded the vessel's limits. Milvi grew flustered. This had never happened before. No single bottle had ever overflowed with such energy, but stopping was too dangerous. When he saw her stumbling, the Duke stepped forward, asking how he could help. Without breaking her focus, she gestured for him to replace the bottle with another. He obeyed quickly, swapping the containers in one smooth motion. Milvi took a deep breath and continued her chant until the beast went completely still and the extraction was complete. When it was over, her strength faltered, and the Duke caught her, holding her steady in his arms until she regained her breath. She assured him the process was successful. He glanced at the creature's body, soft, glossy, free of rot, and expressed his admiration. She explained that she had learned to extract blood and energy without draining the flesh of moisture, keeping it fresh and intact. The Duke grew more impressed with the precision of her work and asked about the origin of her methods. She spoke of her parents' legacy, how her mother had invented the technique and refined it during a famine to make the creatures a source of survival for their people. Since her mother's death, Milvi had devoted herself to mastering the process in honor of her parents' work and to continue saving those who once starved. Yet, in her tone lingered a faint trace of guilty pleasure as she admitted her growing fascination with tasting the meat of rare creatures. The Duke's gaze stayed fixed on the glowing bottles as he wondered about Milvi's purpose in collecting the blood and energy. She calmly explained that she used them as fuel for fires to cook her meals and light her facility for months. Her words shocked him, but he smiled in admiration before revealing a chilling truth, that the energy in those bottles was powerful enough to destroy entire nations. Milvi was shaken, admitting she'd only ever worked with lower creatures and had never imagined such consequences. His expression softened as he reminded her how cruelty often twisted innocence into evil, promising to protect her from anyone who tried to harm her. His words hung heavy in the air, filling the space with charged silence until the tension slowly ebbed, and he made a playful remark about the rumors accusing her of drinking fresh blood. She denied it immediately, startled by the thought, while he stepped closer, fingers brushing a lock of her red hair, admiring its glow and the shimmer in her green eyes that caught the faint magical light around them, and confessed that they had captured his heart. She became flustered, trying to hide her blush, insisting there was no spell behind his interest. It was simply a natural reflection of how her hair reacted to the ambient energy around them. The tension eased into an awkward yet tender silence as they exchanged hesitant compliments, their words faltering, and the air growing warmer without confession. Then, in an abrupt moment of softness, the quiet was sliced by a sharp sound that jolted them back to seriousness. Milvi returned to her work, reminding him they needed to finish cutting up the creatures before being summoned to the castle. The Duke agreed and followed her lead. The Duke fed his dragon, while Milvi approached gracefully to inform him that royal permission for hunting had arrived. He expressed his appreciation, but noted that the royal creature's flesh wouldn't satisfy his dragon's hunger. Milvi reacted with playful surprise, asking if the dragon had actually complained. She found the thought both frightening and amusing. He admitted his dragon was insatiable, and almost as if to prove it, its stomach growled loudly. Milvi smiled and teasingly asked if he too was hungry. He replied that he had never felt such hunger before. Her gaze drifted toward a plate laid out with care, admiring the look of the delicious meat. The Duke agreed eagerly, saying he wanted to taste it fresh, not aged. They exchanged sly glances of playful challenge before deciding to cut a few pieces and roast them over the fire, freeing themselves from formalities. The Duke pulled out a small box of rare spices, which piqued Milvi's curiosity. She tasted a pinch and looked delighted by its flavor, as the aroma of herbs filled the air and the salt blended beautifully with the meat. He admitted he had stolen it from the head chef. It was a rare mix he'd been saving. Milvi smiled lightly, reminding him that they weren't tasting food, they were testing for poison. He nodded with mock seriousness. She sprinkled the spices and lit the fire, suggesting they cook it thoroughly for safety, while the Duke grumbled about the weight, calling it torture. When he thought the meat was ready, she calmly denied it, asking him to turn it again until it reached perfection. Just as they were about to taste the roasted meat, a loud noise broke the calm, throwing them off balance and stirring sudden confusion. The Duke grew irritated right away as he tried to dismiss chaos, insisting whatever he came for could wait. But Chaos's sharp eyes eyes caught the sight of the flaming meat and the smell of roasting that filled the air. A mischievous smile spread across his face as he asked sarcastically what their business was, while noticing their startled expressions. The Duke hurried to hand him the royal decree and told him to feed the dragons, but Chaos stayed put, pointing out that the dragons were growling in hunger while their master feasted alone. Facing the truth, the Duke reluctantly offered him a share. Chaos seized the chance and demanded more, forcing the Duke to give in. Not satisfied, Chaos turned to Milvi, suggesting that the knights who had long endured the tasteless monster meat deserved a chance to taste noble food. He joked that it was an honorable duty to test the meal before serving it. The smell of the meat grew richer as it cooked, sparking visible hunger in the soldier's eyes. The Duke held a plate of skewers, keeping the first piece for himself when Chaos approached, refusing it and choosing another one just to be safe. The Duke's face flushed as he clung stubbornly to the first piece, but Chaos kept teasing, reminding him it was the first dish Lady Milvi had ever prepared for him. The Duke grew irritated, accusing him of toying around, but Chaos laughed it off, claiming he was simply hungry for good food. Milvi handed Chaos a piece to taste. He took it without hesitation as everyone watched in suspense, then his eyes widened in delight. He declared the flavor exceptional, free of any gaminess, melting in the mouth with a richness like sweet wine. Milvi's face shone with happiness, while the Duke grumbled that the whole situation was pure torture, worried there might be hidden magic involved. He asked Chaos if he felt any harm, and Chaos confidently said it was perfectly safe, adding that it was nothing like the tough beast meat they were used to. Still, he warned that magical effects could be delayed, so the Duke reluctantly waited. Milvi explained she had never personally experienced magical poisoning, but she'd heard the symptoms could appear immediately or after a night. The Duke, impatient with waiting, grabbed Chaos and declared he'd had enough teasing and would eat himself. The soldiers, fired up by his words, quickly joined in, complaining that it wasn't fair for Chaos to enjoy it alone. Smiling warmly, Milvi encouraged them to eat before it got cold, reassuring them that she had remedies ready if anyone felt unwell, and that the palace would take care of them. The soldiers cheered with excitement, filling the place with shared joy. Everyone tasted the meat eagerly, astonished by its exquisite flavor. The Duke praised it, noting how it had no strong or unpleasant trace, while Milvi explained that it stayed tender even after cooling a bit, and that the creature's plant-based diet gave the meat a rich, fruity flavor. The Duke admired her genius, but she credited her late mother's research. He insisted she deserved the praise, admitting he never thought monster meat could taste so good after years of eating dry, bland food. The crowd grew impressed, with the aides asking to learn her method, and the knights suggesting they deliver their next hunt to her facility. Chaos smiled in agreement, though a hint of regret crossed him for all the delicious creatures wasted in the past. Milvi laughed softly, noting that few people truly understood her nature, and that some still considered eating creature flesh taboo among them. As everyone enjoyed the meal, the Duke couldn't resist the lingering aroma. He reached for another piece but froze when her gentle voice called his name. Flustered, he quickly made excuses, insisting he'd eat his dinner later. She just smiled and told him she was heading to the lab and invited him to join her. When they entered, the Duke stood amazed by how spacious the place was, and by the jumble of tools and papers filling it a kind of organized chaos that blended research and creativity. Milvi apologized for the mess, but he found it inspiring, calling it the perfect example of a scientist's workshop. His eyes fell on some sharp instruments fitted with spikes, and she explained that she used them in her traps to catch creatures. He was impressed by her cleverness as he watched her calmly prepare tea, then asked if the knights helped her with the hunting. She said that sometimes they did, sometimes she hired hunters from nearby villages, and sometimes she went alone. Her boldness surprised him, and he asked whether the count or the townsfolk opposed her work. She replied that she didn't go against their beliefs, but she was aware of the inner conflict they felt toward her and her mother's research, for even those her mother had saved from hunger had hidden the fact that they survived by eating the creature's flesh. The Duke understood her hardship and mentioned how, in his own kingdom, it was widely believed that eating the creatures was forbidden. Milvi admitted she wasn't brave, just devoted to continuing her mother's legacy. The Duke then asked why she insisted on pursuing a path her people rejected, and she reminded him of the tragedy that happened 17 years ago. He nodded sadly, remembering it as the reason he had been raised as a ward by another family. He gently took her hand and led her to the couch, saying that the story was easier told face to face. Once they sat down, he asked her to speak openly and inquired about the origin of the nickname the greedy demon people had given her. She hesitated for a moment, and he softly brought the conversation back to the reason for his visit and proposal, explaining that he knew much about her family. She admitted that her past and reputation made her a burden in noble society, but he dismissed the thought, insisting he didn't want her to give up her research, and that the Galbraith family could give her the freedom to continue her work without restrictions. He lifted his gaze to her and said he wanted to know her better, not just in her science, but as a person too. Milvi froze, unsure what to say. He went on, confessing painfully that he too had been called the bloodthirsty Duke, a man drenched in the blood of creatures who didn't see himself worthy of his title. Then he asked if she was afraid of him. In that moment, she realized with a trembling heart that when he'd said he wanted to truly know her, he'd meant her soul, the part of her that feared, just as he feared, and hid her own weakness, just like he did. Inside her, emotions clashed. She wondered if he truly saw her as a partner, or just a new experiment that sparked his curiosity. Her last question lingered in her chest. Would Galbraith stay with her once he learned everything about the Institute's research, her real goal, and the reason she inherited from her mother that made her eat the flesh of monsters? Would he still look at her with that gaze full of love and admiration? reaction, or would he see her as everyone else did? And when her mother's secrets and experiments were revealed before him, would he choose to share her vision, or run back to the shadows he came from? Milvi didn't care about Galbrus's harsh words about himself. She told him that it was impossible for her to call him frightening, and that she thought he was handsome, not scary at all. That made Galbrus feel extremely embarrassed. He asked her if she really thought so, and Milvi assured him that he was very handsome. She was excited, though she worried she might have hurt him with her words, so she kept praising him a lot. She told him that his beauty made her heart race, but Galbrus asked whether that made her feel afraid. Milvi told him again that it was wonderful for her, and at that point, Galbrus suspected she might be under a spell, but Milvi told him she had never forgotten his sharpness. Then Galbrus realized that Milvi was bothered by his roughness, but she told him that was natural for someone who hunts monsters, that his role was very important, and that fighting monsters meant it was normal for blood to splatter on him. Even so, Galbrus told her he lacked refinement, and that might bother her. But Milvi said she saw him as someone who brings peace not just to the people, but to the whole nation, and that in her eyes, he was very noble. Then Galbrus asked Milvi what she thought of him as a fiancé. She was surprised by the question, then began to imagine Galbrus as a fiancé, and thought that even at this stage, he would do well as a knight. Milvi told herself that Galbrus would be more than sufficient as a duke, though their social standings posed a dilemma. Still, she thought it would be perfect to have him around her all day long, and that this man would let her do whatever she wanted. Then she told him she'd answer his question. She said he would make a perfect husband for any girl, but wondered why he had chosen her. She added that the people would never accept her, since the vitalism faith wasn't common in Galbrus's country. But if he married the evil flesh-eater whom everyone avoided before she could finish, Galbrus interrupted her and said the people would welcome her warmly. Then he asked her if she knew the Irazini forest. Milvi replied that she knew the forest well, and that it was full of monsters, which surprised Galbrus since the more monsters he killed, the more appeared. He said he could dispose of their carcasses, but where monsters raged, magical energy gathered, eventually producing magical toxins. He said he had to keep hunting monsters to prevent that it was the fate of everyone who bore the name Galbrus. But to Galbrus, monsters were merely prey. That's why he was shocked when he heard Milvi talk longingly about eating them, and saw her prepare that royal dish. Her perspective on things was advanced. Galbrus admitted to Milvi that his people also ate monsters, but never thought it could be a method to drain them of their magic. Milvi hoped that wasn't her only strength. Galbrus asked her if she turned monsters into valuable sources of food. He said naturally people would welcome her then. Milvi realized her research might be useful to Galbrus. She told herself that if she could help someone, then her own research and her mother's research would finally be fulfilled, and that was all she needed. Galbrus told Milvi she wouldn't need anything as long as she was with him, that he would protect her from all evil, and asked her to use her vast knowledge to help the people. Milvi grew very excited and broke the contract agreement between her and Galbrus. Then she thanked him for his generous offer, telling him it was more than she deserved. That made Galbrus think she was going to reject his offer, but Milvi interrupted him and told him she agreed enthusiastically. She said that the most important thing for her was her research, and she could do anything a lady could do. She told him that if monster hunting was his duty, then she'd prepare delicious dishes for him without waste, and if that was enough, please, marry me right now. Then Claudia arrived and asked Galbrus to come with him to meet the Count at the castle. They were waiting for him. Galbrus started walking with Milvi behind him, but Claudia stopped Milvi and whispered that she must not reveal her research to anyone she didn't know well. Then he told Galbrus he would lead the way. While they were walking to the Count, Galbrus remembered when Claudia had eavesdropped on his conversation with Milvi and thought again about how the bloody Duke had proposed to the Count's daughter. When they entered the Count's chamber, Galbrus asked for Milvi's hand in marriage and said it was a great honor. The Count told Galbrus that the news was very good for him, but what about the banquet incident? Galbrus told him that day had been very dull for him since he had killed monsters and been covered in blood, and when Milvi saw him, she wasn't afraid at all and didn't even look away. He knew that was surprising, and that even one of his own family members couldn't let go of that event. After the Count agreed, Galbrus asked him to sign the contract, but the Count explained Milvi's problem that she ate monster meat. Galbrus said he had no issue with that and, in fact, encouraged it. The Count signed the contract and told Galbrus he was very grateful that he admired his daughter, but Galbrus told him it wasn't only admiration, he truly desired her. The Count then asked why he was looking for a fiancé when his family had already adopted many heirs for generations. Galbrus said that was a natural question, but the Count's answer would come in due time. Then he explained why he wanted her because she was attractive. The Count laughed, but then said that in this land, where the faith of spiritualism was strong, her fate was to live in shame. He had planned to send her to a convent. He had been forced to make many decisions, yet his status as a count prevented him from doing everything he wanted. Even though he was her father, he couldn't protect her. But Galbrus gave the Count his word. Once Milvi joined the Galbrus family, he would protect her, and asked him to rest assured and leave it to him. 10 days later, Milvi gathered her belongings to move to Galbrus's mansion. She also collected everything related to her research, as Galbrus had asked. Galbraith cast a powerful enchantment on their engagement contract and assured Milvy not to worry about anything. He swore never to break their engagement, then held her hand and told her he wanted to match the sincerity and determination he saw in her, and asked her not to tell Caius, so he wouldn't grumble at her. Then the Count asked Galbraith not to mention that detail to Milfy, but Galbraith thought that the Count was the one spreading rumors about the greedy witch among high society, deliberately tarnishing their reputation to protect her from those who wanted to exploit her research into evil. At that point, the Count admitted he had gone too far, but Galbraith asked him to try to limit that in the future. Then Milfy asked what they were talking about, but they didn't answer her. Milfy then went to her room, and one of the servants came to tell her that the royal model was ready for transportation, and that the dragons would carry the frozen cargo through the air. This made Milfy very excited. She thanked Mulan and told him to make sure everything stayed frozen. Then Mulan asked her, what about the golden fur belonging to the royal model? Milfy decided to leave it in place, saying she would sew warm coats for her father and his son. After that, Mulan left and Milfy thanked him again. Milfy looked at the remaining items and saw she was nearly done, but for a moment she thought about how quickly she would be moving in with her fiancé. She wondered if this was how it usually went for engaged or married couples. Then she remembered what Galbraith had told her, that the winter in Martial Red was very long, and he didn't want to wait until spring. She came back to the present and said she had to get ready to meet his family. Then she held her mother's picture and wondered, how was it for you, mother? She missed her very much. After that, one of the servants entered and told her that Galbraith was waiting for her. Milfy asked the servant, Herman, to take good care of the Count, and Herman assured her he would. She then left the room, taking one last look before going, unable to believe she would never return there again. She then went to her father's room, knocked on the door, and entered only to find Shilia inside. Milfy asked her what she was doing there. Shilia replied that she was Milfy's stepmother and had to say goodbye to her daughter before her wedding, then added that the smell of dragons was disgusting. Milfy asked where her father was, and Shilia said he was outside organizing Milfy's luggage that would be sent to Galbraith's home. Shilia told Milfy not to leave any of her belongings behind, but Milfy said she would leave the golden fur, and asked Shilia to use it to make clothes for her father and his son. But Shilia scolded Milfy, accusing her of seducing Galbraith into marrying her. She also told her that if she and the Duke had a child, Shilia's son would be the only heir to the family. Milfy told her that she had married outside the family, and would dedicate her life to serving the Galbraith family. This angered Shilia, who told her she was just like her mother, always keeping the best for herself. She said she couldn't stand her mother and couldn't stand her either. She threatened Milfy that if she ever broke off her engagement, she'd have no home anymore and would be sent directly to a convent. But Milfy had already considered that possibility. Then Shilia told her she was done talking and asked her to leave because she couldn't stand the smell of dragons. Milfy left the room feeling sad, though she didn't really care. At least she had heard her mother's name one last time. Then she went to her father, and the Count asked her if she was ready. Milfy said she was. She had packed everything and was wearing her mother's coat. She also remembered her mother and asked her father if her mother had made it during winter, right? The Count confirmed that, saying she had seen her first snow in that city and was so excited she got sick. She always behaved like a child, he added, before apologizing. But Milfy asked him not to. Then Galbraith arrived, flying down from the sky. He told Milfy he came for her. Milfy stepped toward him, and Galbraith kissed her hand and asked how she was, making her so shy that the Count laughed at them, surprised by Galbraith's boldness. Galbraith then told the Count he truly loved his daughter. He asked Milfy if she had finished packing. She said yes. He then asked if she wanted all those things, but Milfy didn't really want them. He asked if he should burn them, then held her hand firmly, and told the Count he would take Milfy with him. The Count said goodbye to his daughter and told her they'd see each other in the spring, but Galbraith told him she might not be able to come back by then. The Count asked about the items that must be arranged with the Galbraith family for the wedding, but Galbraith said he would send him everything needed. Milfy was surprised by his words. Then they flew high with the dragon. The Count said to Galbraith that there were many things they needed to discuss, but Galbraith told him not to worry. He would protect Milfy, since he had both the strength and the status to do so. He added that burning the waste would be a dull task for them, so since he was in a good mood today, he'd take care of it himself. He burned everything, but Claudie thought Galbraith had gone too far, and Galbraith asked him to forgive him, inviting him to serve the Galbraith family, promising to make a special place for him. Claudie refused firmly, leaving Milfy very surprised. After everyone was amazed by the fire that Galbraith had caused, Galbraith was having a conversation with Melfi while they were flying on the dragon's back. Then Galbraith asked Melfi if she would miss home, but Melfi would naturally miss it. However, she wanted to see a better future with him as well. Galbraith advised Melfi to act naturally in Galbraith's castle, and what was required of her as a wife was to appreciate and comfort her husband. But Melfi didn't know if she was capable of doing this or not. However, Galbraith embraced Melfi and told her that she would be fine, and that he felt at peace with her now, which made Melfi feel very shy. Then Galbraith told Melfi Melfi that he enjoyed hearing her talk about monsters, and told her that it was easy to search for monsters in Galbris City, and that he would hunt monsters for her, which amazed Melfi. But Galbris also told her that the knights who had tried the royal model apparently spread the news, and that all the men were eagerly waiting to see what other monsters she would bring, which made Melfi feel very happy about this, and she said to herself that the Duke was a very nice man. While they continued flying, Melfi saw the place from above, outlined in red, and told Galbris that it was very good. But Galbris told Melfi that it was like the color of her hair, and that it was beautiful. But Melfi said it wasn't that beautiful. But Galbris told her about when she was using magic, which made her hair shine, and that he was very fascinated by this. He put his hands in Melfi's hair and told her she was beautiful, which made Melfi feel very embarrassed when he touched her hair. Then night fell on them, and Melfi continued to be amazed. But the dragons had light in their heads so they could recognize each other's locations. But while they were on their way, they passed over some town, and the townspeople saw the dragons as meteors in the sky. Galbris told Melfi they were going to retired fortress on the border, but he told her not to worry because she felt worried when he told her about a fortress. But Galbris reassured her and told her he would find her a room where she would be comfortable. Melfi wondered if there were rivers and forests on the border, and would they have breakfast and dinner tomorrow in the open air. But it was obvious that Galbris misunderstood her, and that she became very excited because Melfi thought this would make feeding the dragons simpler and easier. But Galbris thought that dragons only needed a place to sleep, and only carried field rations, and thought that Melfi preferred the city. But Melfi asked Galbris not to worry about her, and also told him that fish monsters are abundant now, because this is their breeding season, and there might be monster fruit in the forest as well. And if they had monsters she had only seen in books, she also wanted to try them, which made Galbris laugh about the fish monsters, and told her that there were Xanas in the river at this time of year, which surprised Melfi because they didn't have Xanas in their country, and she would like to try one if Galbris could catch it. But Galbris told her that it needed a tight ambush and pulling them from the water, which made Melfi despair because she learned that catching Xanas would take a long time. But Galbris asked Melfi not to despair, because at this time of year the night is very long, and he would set up an ambush for her tonight and check it tomorrow morning. Melfi asked Galbris if he was serious, but Galbris saw that a hot and fresh meal was better than pre-prepared rations, and that he was looking forward to breakfast tomorrow. But Melfi remembered Kaio's words to her, that their knights had eaten nothing but terrible monster meat until now. Then she returned to the present, and asked Galbris if he had cooked any of the monsters he had killed before, but Galbris told her that she wouldn't call it complete cooking, because it was rancid and tough, and he told her that they would resort to it on long missions when they felt hungry, and that they would grill it so as not to hurt their stomachs, but in the end they would suffer because of their stomachs. But Melfi thought that they had eaten it without removing the toxins from it, and asked him if he knew what type of monster he had eaten. Galbris answered her and told her that it was a Beluvia, and that they were rancid and some of them were basically inedible, and this couldn't be considered food, and it seemed that it was surrounded by very burning fire, and its inside was like mud. But he lost consciousness, and didn't remember if he had drunk it in his state of extreme hunger. After they reached the retired fort, he asked Melfi to hold on to him tightly, and began the rapid descent. While the knights were talking with the guards, Galbris asked Melfi to unpack the goods she would need in this place. While Melfi was doing this, Galbris approached her, and told her that it wasn't too late to enter the town, and that he had lost his mind when he thought of allowing her to stay here for a night. But Melfi didn't feel annoyed by this at all, and told him that this fort reminded her of her research center, and it was normal for her to sleep on the ground, and in addition to this, he would be with her, and there was nothing to worry about. Then they moved to Melfi's room, and Galbris asked her to rest from the journey, but Melfi told him that she didn't feel tired because he had provided her with magic. Then Melfi smelled a strange odor and began following the smell, then told Galbris about the presence of something not good. Then she went to the kitchen, which led to the servant's surprise at her presence, and one of the servants told her that she shouldn't be here. But Melfi asked the king's permission, then told them you are cooking thin porridge, and told them that it wouldn't fill them up. But she put her things on the table and showed them royal muttle meat, which led to the servants' amazement. Melfi told them it was salted royal moudel, and told them she was very sure of this. But one of the servants called Zeth asked if this was the meat of the golden beast, but Mulan asked his friend not to frown because Melfi brought this meat for them. Melfi asked Zeth, "You weren't present during the tasting, were you?" Then Zeth asked Mulan if he was sure that he and Mr. Kaios hadn't lost their minds, and Mulan was sure of this. Then Melfi cut the meat and put it on the fire to remove the toxins from it, and asked Zeth to try it. But Mulan asked Melfi that he also wanted to try, but Zeth couldn't believe he would eat this, but Mulan told him he would miss many things if he was pure. Then Melfi prepared his portion of meat and gave it to him, and when Mulan ate his piece, he liked it very much, and said it was very delicious and fresh too. But the servants heard Galbris's voice, which led to their shock, and Galbris also asked Melfi that he wanted to eat from it. Melfi approached Galbris and told him about his portion being available too, and held him, and after she asked him to eat, but Galbraith refused because she hadn't fed him first. But Melfi thought about how to feed him like the maid used to do with her little brother, and that she used to call his name until he looked at her. When she did this, Galbraith looked at Melfi, and she immediately fed him the meat. After Galbraith ate, Melfi asked him about its taste, but Galbraith told her it was good. Then Zeth ate the meat after that, and Melfi also asked him about its taste, and Zeth told Melfi it was very good. Then she said to them, if we're going to cook them together. Then she asked Zeth and Mulan to cut the meat into small pieces, which made them very excited. Then everyone moved outside to eat the food that Melfi brought. But Melfi was happy that everyone was happy. But Galbraith told her that they were happy because of the food she prepared, and that it was a dish with a good smell, and asked her if she did something different, but Melfi had cut the meat and fried it on low heat. When Galbraith fed Melfi, Melfi told him that she could feed herself, and asked him to try the salted meat, but Galbraith refused, and told her he wanted to feed her. But Melfi saw that Galbraith was insistent and ate the food from his hand, and told him it was delicious, and asked him that she would eat the rest alone, but Galbraith didn't agree, and asked her to eat from his hands once more, until she finished her plate. After that, Galbraith asked Melfi to talk to her about an important matter, which was to call him less formally, which led to Melfi's surprise about this. Melfi called him Duke, and Galbraith thought this was better, and told her that according to Kaios, all engaged couples use each other's names or endearing terms. But Melfi told him that her parents used to call each other by their names, but Melfi felt embarrassed when calling him like that, and that she wasn't used to it, but told him she would get herself used to this. But Galbraith suggested that she call him by his title, but Melfi called him Roger, which led to his eyes turning golden, which amazed Melfi, and she told him that his eyes had changed, and asked if he was okay. She asked for help from one of the assistants. When Mulan approached them, Galbraith said he was fine, and that he had lost control of his magical power for a moment. Melfi thought and said to herself that this happened to him because of the meat she fed them, but Mulan tried to reassure Melfi about Galbraith, and told her not to worry, and that Galbraith's magical power was great, and that he could store it more than any ordinary person, and would get better when he released some of it. But Galbraith told Melfi he was fine, and that he would go hunt Xanis. But Melfi discovered that Galbraith's power was stronger than any ordinary person, and that both monsters and humans have magical power inside them, and when it accumulates and crystallizes inside the monster, it secretes toxins, and drives them to madness. She remembered her mother and wondered, will Galbraith end up like her mother? She felt sad then. Then Melfi remembered her mother when she was bedridden, and Melfi's mother told Melfi that there are people who have frail bodies, but she was born with great magical energy in her body, and when this energy increases, it makes her sick in bed. Melfi asked her mother, do you feel severe pain? But her mother told her she was fine, but Melfi's mother died, and everyone was sad about her. But Melfi began reading books, and discovered that the magic circle she extracted from the monsters accumulated inside her body, and turned into toxins because she couldn't break it down. Her mother's magic was wonderful, and when used, her hair would glow red, and she looked like a fairy from a fairy tale, and Melfi loved watching her very much. Melfi continued learning afterwards, and discovered that humans cannot tolerate the toxins of monsters, and that their bodies would collapse before they lost their minds. But while she was studying, she fell into a big pit, but she promised that she would complete her research to save Galbraith. Then she returned to the present and that she was dreaming and woke up from sleep, and was surprised that Galbraith's coat was on her. Then she imagined that she slept on the ground and that the Duke found her and carried her, and she saw that this was very embarrassing. Then Melfi went to Galbraith, and Galbraith said to Melfi, you have already woken up. Then Melfi asked Galbraith about his condition, but Galbraith apologized to her because he caused her worry, and thought she was surprised because he didn't tell her. Then Melfi asked Galbraith that the magic power hadn't crystallized inside him, right? But Galbraith hugged Melfi and told her he was fine, which led to Melfi feeling embarrassed. Then Galbraith approached Melfi and told her that he also wasn't suffering from any fever, but Melfi felt very embarrassed, but put her hands on his head and told him it was cold as ice. But Galbraith was like this because he dipped himself in river water. But Melfi asked Galbraith once more, are you sure you're okay? And that he might get sick if he stayed cold like this. But Galbraith told her that she was examining him, and this was something that brought him warmth. But Melfi told him to wear his coat better. When Galbraith wore his coat, he told her that he had hunted something unexpected for her. But Melfi told him that his health was more important than the Xanas. But Galbraith hugged her once more, and told her they would be warm like this, and that they would take a quick look at it, and he was happy. Melfi asked Galbraith, haven't you killed the Xana's fish you caught yet? Galbraith confirmed that he hadn't killed it yet, and that it was still in the fishing net, but Melfi strongly wanted to cook it after it was killed. Galbraith agreed with this idea very much, but Melfi saw that Galbraith needed rest because he hadn't slept well. However, Galbraith told Melfi that he felt comfortable with her by his side, and told her that her hair was very soft, which made Melfi feel very embarrassed. She told Galbraith that she was very dirty, but Galbraith was also dirty and hugged her. Then Zeeth came to them, and Melfi said she was happy he came at this time, which also embarrassed Zeeth. After that, Melfi was pleased that everyone was present, and told them that she would cook them Xana's fish today. She asked them who could bring oil and flour to use in cooking. Here Zeeth said he could bring them, and Melfi felt very grateful to him. Then Melfi went outside and went to Galbraith and told him she was ready to go with him to see the Xana's fish. But Galbraith asked Melfi if she was prepared, but Melfi showed him a paper with magic circles drawn on it and told him that this helps her too. Galbraith thought this was an interesting idea. Galbraith asked Melfi if she would stick this paper on the Xanas. Melfi said, of course, because water would wash away a circle drawn on the ground. Then they moved to the lake, and Galbraith asked Melfi to step back a little and asked the soldiers to pull the net and told them to be careful because it's a fish like a monster. The soldiers pulled the net repeatedly until they were able to get the fish out of the lake. Melfi was extremely amazed when she saw it, and that it wasn't like what exists in the pictures of the books she had read, and that if she was bitten by its teeth, a part of her would be severed. Here Galbraith, while using his magic, asked Melfi to be careful. Then Galbraith asked, should he cut off its head now or what? Melfi said no, we should kill it with this blade that was made in Galbraith's city. She raised the blade but couldn't control it well because it was heavy. Galbraith asked Melfi if she intended to do this alone. Melfi said she wanted to do this but didn't think she was capable anymore. Galbraith took the sword from her and told her, I told you before to leave the hard work to me. Melfi remembered when Galbraith said in the past to leave the fighting to him. Then Galbraith advanced to the fish and asked Melfi to tell him how to do this. Melfi said first you must blind the fish because fish don't move in darkness. When Melfi did this, the fish stopped moving. Then she asked Galbraith to stab the back part from the eye and above the gills, then twist the blade. When Galbraith was well prepared, Melfi told him, now do it. Galbraith stabbed the fish, and Melfi told Galbraith that when he removes the cloth, he must twist his blade. Galbraith actually did what Melfi asked of him, which killed the fish. After that, Melfi asked everyone to step back and leave the rest to her. Then Melfi stuck the spell papers on the fish and cast her spell and extracted all the blood from the fish until the bottle was filled. Then she gave the bottle to Galbraith. Melfi wanted to remove the head, organs, and scales too. Then she asked Galbraith to teach her how to do this so she wouldn't have to ask him every time. But Galbraith smiled and said he had cut off many monster heads. But he didn't have the same enthusiasm that Melfi possessed, and he doesn't enjoy it unless he's cooking monsters with her. Melfi was also happy cooking with him, and with everyone too, and she remembered when she was in her city, she used to do this, and her research alone too. When the soldiers lifted the fish, Melfi said excitedly, let's go cut off the head and organs too, which also excited the soldiers. After that, the fish was placed on a wooden box, and Galbraith was ready to cut off the head, but he asked Melfi how to do this. Melfi said, you should start from the left side of the place where you stabbed it before. Galbraith thought this angle was difficult, but he used his strength and cut well, which encouraged the others for him. Melfi was also impressed and told Molin that Galbraith uses his sword very well, and that he was able to preserve the meat after cutting off the head. Molin was also very impressed, but Galbraith asked them, what are you two talking about? Melfi said they were talking about his sword skills, which made Galbraith feel embarrassed. After that, they removed the vital organs from the fish. Melfi told Galbraith that the organs and head are not edible. Galbraith knew this, and used fire magic to burn them, which also amazed Melfi from the fire. Molin told Melfi that Galbraith was the one who invented this spell to help people who have difficulty disposing of monsters. After that, they moved to the castle. Zeeth told them they couldn't cook inside because there was a problem in the kitchen. Melfi thought this was good for her because she hadn't cleaned the kitchen after cooking, and that the air would remove everything. Then she asked if there was anyone among them who could cut the fish and peel the skin from it. Ambry raised his hands and told Melfi that he does that almost daily. After that, Melfi asked Ambry to do that with the fish. Then Ambry peeled the skin and cut the fish well, which greatly amazed Melfi. Melfi said, of course, this is the caliber of Galbraith's men. Then she thought that cutting something you slaughtered so beautifully felt wasteful, but Ambry doesn't mind this. Molin thought if it was pounded and fried, it's suitable for him, and that they would eat until they were full. Melfi agreed with this and wished for everyone to help her, and the soldiers were very excited about this. After that, she placed 2 pots on the fire, and made the temperature of one stronger than the other, and that she would fry the fish in 2 stages. Galbraith asked Melfi if he could help her too. Melfi asked Galbraith to watch the hot pot please. Then Melfi explained how to pound the fish, and since they don't have eggs, she will mix spices with flour and will dip the fish pieces in the mixture, then start frying them in the pot and leave them until they become brown, then remove them from the pot, and that she will put them in the other pot so they don't dry out, but it will be for a short time, so they form a crispy outer appearance and are juicy inside, and this is how their Xanas will be ready. After that, each of them did something, but Galbraith couldn't keep them well in the oil. When he showed them to Melfi, he asked her to forgive him, but Melfi told him that everyone can't do it the right way the first time. She also told him that it's edible, and asked him to feed her a piece of it. Galbraith thought it was a failure, and Melfi said no, it's very delicious, but her hands are sticky and she will taste it to test for toxicity. She opened her mouth for him to feed her, which made Galbraith feel embarrassed, but Melfi told him it's freshly fried, and also asked him to blow on one of them for her. Then Galbraith blew on one for Melfi, then fed her. When Melfi tasted it, she felt amazed by its beauty, and that the meat is very tender, and that the smell of the crispy crispy and salty batter goes perfectly with the chewy meat. When Galbraith asked Melfi about the taste, Melfi said the meat is irresistible and that the flavor explodes in her mouth when she bites it. Then Galbraith tasted it himself and saw that it was very beautiful and that Melfi was right that it's very delicious. Then Melfi was surprised that Galbraith finished half her food, which made her feel great amazement at this. Galbraith said there's no harm in adding more salt too. Then he suggested trying one of the successful pieces. Before trying it, Melfi asked him to let her taste it first to test for toxicity. But Galbraith tasted it and was amazed by its beauty too, and asked Melfi to try it too. Melfi said it's also very beautiful and fluffy too, and it's light so you can eat it forever. Galbraith suggested preparing both because there will be those who prefer one or the other. Then he asked Molen to try it, which made Molen happy. After that, they prepared both types, and the soldiers also tasted both types. After finishing, Melfi thanked Galbraith for helping her, and that she enjoyed it a lot because he was with her. Galbraith saw that what matters is that Melfi is enjoying herself. Then Galbraith asked Melfi, "Will we eat outside?" Melfi said of course, and that she asked the castle cook to bring vegetables and bread, and that they arranged things in the Great Hall. She asked Galbraith to go there and enjoy a delicious breakfast. Then she asked Molen to accompany Galbraith there so he could prepare the best meal for the man of the hour. Then Molen grabbed Galbraith, which annoyed Galbraith, but Molen told him no one else will eat unless you eat. Then Galbraith looked at Melfi, and Melfi told him she will come after disposing of the oil, and told him to add salt according to his taste. Then Mulan pulled Galbraith inside, and after that, Melfi thought that Galbraith did all of this for her, but she always tells him that she is excited to meet other monsters, but she must be careful and think about what he wants too. And when she was cleaning, Zeth and Embry came to her and told her that they would help her with the cleaning, and that 3 people are better than 1 person. And after that, Melfi presented them with meat and asked them what they thought about it. And she asked Zeth if Xana's was also, and Embry saw that it had a lot of oil in it. And Melfi told them that it was belly meat, and that it wasn't suitable for frying, so she didn't want to serve it to others. But Zeth said it looked appetizing to him and ate it, and Embry after eating it said it was very delicious too, and thought it would be tastier with sour fruit juice. And Zeth said he asked them to bring fruits for breakfast and maybe they have some there. Then Melfi said to them, "Let's hurry before the fruit runs out." And after that they moved inside the castle, and the 3 of them prepared well to attack the food. But when they entered, they found many soldiers eating from the food they had prepared. Then Galbraith called out to Melfi to join him, and after Melfi joined him, he told her that they would fly after eating, and asked her to eat well. And Melfi asked Galbraith also to eat until full. Then Galbraith started eating, and Melfi discovered that this was another way to eat, and she imitated Galbraith, and found that it tasted very good, and that she could eat too without getting her hands dirty. Then Zeth presented the sour fruit they had talked about before. Then Melfi picked up one of them and put it on the meat, and when she tasted it, the taste of the meat became more beautiful, and she felt amazed by this, and that eating it became much easier, and that this would be useful for weak digestive systems or those with poor appetites. And Galbraith asked if it was delicious to this extent, and Melfi asked Galbraith if he enjoyed sour flavors, but Galbraith doesn't know because he only eats them when he drinks. And when he ate one of the meats with sour flavor, he felt annoyed, which made Melfi worried about him. But Galbraith told her he was fine, but the sourness makes one wake up, but it's okay. And Melfi said to herself that he doesn't like sour foods, and she must not make this mistake again. And Galbraith told her that he was enjoying himself with her very much. And after that, they prepared to leave. And Zeth and Embry told Melfi that they prepared food for them to eat on their way, and that they also froze and salted the remaining Xanas. And Melfi saw that this way it would last longer and thanked them, which made them happy. And while they prepared to leave, Galbraith said the road is very long to the city, and asked them to stay alert to avoid any accidents. Then they flew high, and while they were flying, Galbraith said to Melfi that they were on their way to Badham, and Melfi was excited to go to a completely new country for her. Melfi told Galbraith that he hadn't slept the night before, and Galbraith told her he was fine, and that he was taking this, then showed her the green cup. Melfi thought Galbraith didn't like that cup, but he told her he never said that, and that it actually helped him stay awake, which surprised her. Melfi then told Galbraith he needed to rest and said she could ride with Zeeth or Mulan instead, which made Galbraith angry, and he cut her off before saying he was only joking. He told her he bought that green cup for her because she liked it, and told her not to do that, meaning not to rely on other men making Melfi laugh at his behavior. Galbraith then asked her not to laugh at what he said either. Melfi began wondering about Galbraith's life in his homeland, and thought about how all of his knights loved and respected him. As they continued flying, Melfi asked Galbraith how many cities existed in his country. He told her they had 30 cities 17 years ago, but now only 12 remained. Melfi thought the reduction must have been caused by drought and severe famine. Galbraith said they called that period the natural disasters. During that time, the former duke had died, and Galbraith was appointed in his place. This shocked Melfi, since a duke dying in a famine seemed strange to her. She thought maybe he had died from an illness or an unfortunate accident. Galbraith then explained to Milphie that a large number of monsters had appeared in the Urzani forest, and they hadn't been able to kill them. The monsters' magical power had quickly grown, and they managed to surround the entire city. Milphie hadn't imagined things were that bad. Galbraith also told her that the previous duke had done his duty completely, but they lost many knights too, though no other nation suffered damage. Milphie then asked about the knights of other countries, and why the king hadn't requested reinforcements. Galbraith confirmed that the king had indeed asked for help, but because the catastrophe had affected the entire nation, no one had forces to spare. Since then, all the knights had sworn to dedicate their lives to the kingdom. Someone had to uphold that vow, him, and the knights who looked up to him as a role model. They built their oath on that promise, putting their lives on the line whenever they faced any of the monsters to defend their kingdom and prevent another disaster. He swore by the souls of all the knights who had died. Milphie was shocked by this and realized that Galbraith was ready to die at any moment to protect his kingdom. She told him not to smile while talking about losing his life, and that she wouldn't allow it. She remembered her mother's death, who had surrendered to her fate in the same way. Milphie said she would continue her search, so no one would have to suffer again. Then Galbraith took Milphie's hand and asked her to forgive him for not valuing his own life. But Milphie held his hand, kissed it, and told him she was sure the magic circle she was searching for would be useful to him, and she would do everything she could to protect him and the other knights. She asked him to change the way he thought about losing his life. Galbraith told Milphie he had to protect her and keep her from harm. Milphie said she also wanted to protect him, but their ways were different, and she wanted to protect others too. Galbraith was about to say something, but Milphie asked him not to tell her it was impossible. She told him she could do it. Galbraith said he just didn't want her to be hurt, that her words made his heart feel warm, and he asked her not to cry. Milphie then hugged him, and he told her he didn't want to leave her sad. It was just something he had always taken for granted. Then he told her it was just an old story, and asked if she wanted to hear it. Milphie asked him to tell her a bit about himself, but Galbraith started thinking to himself, torn between wanting to share and wanting to keep it to himself. Even though they were engaged, he didn't want to disappoint her. Then he said there's nothing that can change the past, but he wanted her to know who he really was. Milphie leaned in carefully to listen. Galbraith said he was the second son of the former king of Longdius, and that he had an older brother named Maxime, who had the same hair and eyes as King Maximus. When they were alone, Galbraith told Maxim that he was amazing, that teachers and maids said he was smart and a quick learner. Maxim said he was happy to hear that, but Galbraith said he always lost control of his magical power, and ended up destroying parts of the castle, which embarrassed him. Maxime said that made Galbraith clumsier than the rest. After that, Galbraith trained with one of the instructors, and a huge explosion happened. The teacher told him he had warned him many times to be careful when using his power. The color of Galbraith's eyes changed. He felt pain, collapsed, and got a fever again. Milphie felt scared for him when she heard that. Realizing how dangerous losing control of his magic could be, it could kill him if the fever didn't subside. But Galbraith told her he was fine, and figured out that she had been worried about him the previous night because of that. He continued telling Milphie about his past, saying that once he became strong enough to handle the magic within him, the only place left for him in the castle was with the knights. There, he met Caius, who told Galbraith, "So, you're the uncontrollable prince," and said that the staff and servants were afraid of him. Even though Caius often criticized him, he was the first to offer his loyalty. Returning to the present, Galbraith told Milphie that Caius could have followed in his father's footsteps and joined the royal guard, but instead, he chose to follow him faithfully to Galbraith's lands. Milphie thought it was a wonderful story. Galbraith pulled her into his arms and asked if she felt cold, then if she wanted to hear the rest of the story. He told her it wasn't a pleasant one. Milphie asked, "Do you mean what happened 17 years ago? Aren't those national secrets?" But Galbraith didn't mind telling her, saying their engagement had the king's approval. Milphie thought she was lucky, but Galbraith said he was the one surprised by it. He had never intended to marry anyone. But he changed his mind after meeting her. He continued talking about his past, saying his father had chosen him and appointed him as the second duke to watch over his older brother, who was next in line for the throne, to prevent a succession dispute. But at the time, the kingdom had grown weak due to drought and famine that struck the region. The nobles were on the verge of rebellion. Some nobles supported strict measures to name him crown prince and send him out to attack other nations, wanting to expand their lands through conquest under the name of a magically gifted prince. This caused internal conflict between those who supported and those who opposed the wars, and Caius's father was one of those who fell during that time. Galbraith began hearing the servants talk about food and water shortages and monsters attacking the city. He rushed to his brother Maxim and told him he was going to act, and that he would take on the name of Galbraith so that his brother could become king, saying they couldn't let the tragedy happen again. Maxim was stunned by his younger brother's words, then hugged him and said, "All right, my dear brother." Later, Maxim and his brother went to the nobles and announced that the prince had renounced the throne and that Maxim would become his successor, promising to end the suffering as soon as possible. After several years, Galbraith met with Maxim, and Galbraith told him that hunting monsters couldn't be the only purpose for the city's knights. He wanted to give them something greater. Maxim agreed that Galbraith was right and asked, "What about earning a position in the royal guard after 5 years of service?" Galbraith thought that would greatly strengthen their ranks. Then Z Zeeth said they were exploring possible uses for the monsters they hunted. Galbraith explained that some monsters were sources of rare materials, so it would be wasteful to simply dispose of them. Zeeth said that valuable parts included horns, claws, and hides, and it would be wise to buy anything useful. Maxim found that, depending on the quality, he might even be able to sell them for large sums. Galbraith and Maxim came to an agreement, then returned to the present. Milphie was surprised that this had happened, and Galbraith told her it wasn't supposed to happen, but it did, only because he and the king were brothers. She thought to herself, so that's how it happened, and told Galbraith that, even so, it was a great system. It worked because many monsters lived around Galbraith, and he also had strong knights to exterminate them. Galbraith confirmed that this was exactly why he continued to hunt monsters. They protected the kingdom this way. He also told her that if another catastrophe occurred, he would give up his life. But Milphie suggested to Galbraith that instead of sacrificing himself, they should look for another way to deal with the disaster itself. Galbraith asked her if that was even possible. Milphie said that the monsters kept increasing in number, and that there was a limit to how many could be hunted. Galbraith felt that someone had to face it regardless. Milphie asked if he really planned to sacrifice himself, though she didn't want that at all. She told him that if her new research on extracting magic from living creatures, or rather, extracting magical toxins, succeeded, then the monsters might stop losing control and attacking people. That way, he wouldn't have to risk his life anymore. Milphie also said that if she learned how to extract magical toxins while the creature was still alive, she might even be able to prepare delicious meat from the frenzied monsters. Galbraith was amazed by her words and kissed her on the head, which made her blush deeply. Galbraith laughed at her reaction and teased, "After the passion you just showed me, how am I supposed to hold back?" Milphie grew angry and told him she was being serious, but Galbraith said he was now thinking about how to live his life with her, which left her stunned. She told him, "Don't make fun of me." Then he asked her to look behind her and told her they were about to arrive in just a few moments. They'd reached their city. They were now flying over the Urzini forest, which was huge and required a map to navigate. Milphie was amazed by the size of the forest, which was also infested with monsters. But Galbraith told her that the land contained magic ore, ley lines, and resources buried deep underground. Because the soil and air were filled with magic, only monsters could survive there. Milphie was shocked. So only monsters live in this forest? She thought to herself, that's incredibly dangerous. Galbraith then asked her to look at the Galbraith River, the largest one they had, and told her about another river in the east that fed into it, branching into 3 directions from there. Milphie asked if all the rivers converged in one area. Galbraith said this place was special and pointed to a location, explaining that melted snow from the distant Galbraith meadows flowed underground until resurfacing here. He also told her that during the disaster 17 years ago, all of this had completely dried up. Milphie thought to herself that a dried-up river was already remarkable. No wonder Marshal Deer never had a chance. She wondered if the Duke knew the reason behind the widespread drought. She was about to ask Galbraith when he instructed her to sit properly, warning that her current position could put her life in danger. When she did, Galbraith received a message from one of the knights reporting a large group of Bergenon monsters nearby. Galbraith and Milphie looked behind them and saw that there were indeed many. Galbraith said he would take command and that he needed 2 unburdened knights to cover the rear. He asked who would volunteer, and Zeeth said that he and Eric would handle it. They switched positions and moved back for defense. Milphie looked back and saw the monsters getting closer, which oddly made her happy there were so many of them. When Galbraith realized their numbers were growing, he ordered the knights to get as close as possible and handed Milphie a wind visor to wear. He also put one on himself and told her, "Sorry this is happening, but that's just how things go in Galbraith." Milphie told him she was fine and asked whether those creatures were monsters and if they were flying ones. Galbraith explained they were monsters called Bergenon, which used a hunting spell to attack in packs. It would make sense if they had a single rider, but it was rare for them to attack while traveling in groups. Milphie thought to herself that this was the first monster she had encountered that wasn't in her books. She said she'd love to eat them but didn't want to be eaten. Just then, Galbraith received a message from the knights, saying they were ready. He told Milphie to hold on tight and asked if she was ready. Then he unleashed his power, casting a speed spell that made him accelerate through the air, followed by the knights behind him. But Milphie saw the ground getting closer and felt as if she were about to crash into it. Fear gripped her completely. But suddenly, Galbraith rose up into the air, and Melvie was trying to think of a solution. She started looking at those monsters as if they would make really good meals for them, and could be cooked in more than one way since they were birds. But then she realized the monsters probably saw them the same way too, and that made her even more nervous. The monsters kept chasing Galbraith and the soldiers, and that's when Galbraith told his men to attack them. He told Melvie that they were going to speed up even more, but Melvie wasn't worried, and felt Galbraith's magical power increasing. Then Galbraith sped up. On the other side, the soldiers were still attacking the monsters, and Mulan felt like he couldn't focus because of the high speed, and Zeeth also couldn't manage it. Zeeth suggested to Galbraith that they land and attack, but Galbraith refused because that wouldn't give them any real result, and they had to reach the defensive line. Melvie told herself they weren't attacking because of her, since it was hard for Galbraith to escape from the monsters, and she also thought the dragons couldn't attack because they were loaded down with her belongings. She also told herself she wasn't useless, but she was still a burden. She thought that if she threw her belongings toward the monsters, it would scatter them. She suggested the idea to Galbraith, but he refused. Then she told him the bag was booby-trapped, but she couldn't finish talking because of the strong wind, and Galbraith told her not to speak so she wouldn't get hurt. But Melvy suggested that they could attack using the seal on her bag, and Galbraith refused that too. Melvy, however, was stubborn. Galbraith hugged her, whispered in her ear with a smile, and told her there were knights waiting for them at the defensive line, so she shouldn't worry. Melvy told herself he was smiling at her like that, just to make her feel safe, but she had to help him, and she started thinking again. She opened her bag and started looking for anything that could help, and she found a cup that was the mist passage. She had wanted to use it to drain their magic, but it was already full and contained Xanas's blood, so it couldn't absorb anything else. But she remembered when Galbraith told her that this could be used to create a destructive weapon. Still, she saw that just throwing it at them wouldn't generate that much power, and there were a lot of monsters, and that bottle wouldn't be enough. Then she remembered that Galbraith could use a fire spell, and that if he used it, they'd be able to preserve the magical power. Then Melvy brought out something else. Meanwhile, on the other side, the monsters still hadn't given up, which annoyed Mulan. But Melvy started getting ready to wipe out the monsters. She was going to write down every spell she knew and turn it into a magic circle, and she wanted to write the Duke's full name, but she didn't know his full name, which shocked her. So Melvy asked Galbraith for his full name, and when he said it, Melvy wrote it on the vessel. After that, she put the vessel to Galbraith's mouth so he could lick it, but when Galbraith saw the vessel, he said to her, "Is this Xanas's blood?" Melvy told him, of course, and that she had written down all the spells she knew. Galbraith took the vessel and started reading the spell, which made him laugh, and he patted Melvy's head. Then he cut himself and told her not to worry. He hadn't cut too deep so he could still steer. He put his blood on the vessel and on the magic spells, and asked Melvy if she was the one who came up with this. He felt happy that she was the one who did it. Melvy held Galbraith's injured hand and asked him to let her heal his wound. Galbraith moved closer to her and told her he'd finish this quickly so that could happen. Then he informed the soldiers that he was moving to the rear and that they would all climb from behind. He told Emberby to take the front, Zeeth to the left, and Eric to the right. He told Mulan to stay in his position until he came to him. Then Galbraith moved closer to Mulan and asked him to act as bait. He also told him to cast acceleration on himself and break through their ranks. Mulan was ready to do it, but Galbraith told him, "You idiot, what's the point of doing that if you die?" and told him to break through while staying alive. That surprised Mulan, but Galbraith told him he would distract them and use that vessel, and that he was going to burn those birds to ashes. He told him that as soon as he got through, he should get as far away from the flock as possible and fly higher. Then Galbraith told everyone to climb and accelerate. When they did that, Galbraith gave the signal to Mulan to move. Mulan headed toward the monsters, and Galbraith saw that it was time to attack, and that these monsters were going to pay a heavy price for exhausting them and scaring Melvy too. When Mulan broke away from the flock of monsters, Galbraith threw the vessel, but one of the birds swallowed it, which surprised Melvy. Galbraith told her not to worry and to close her eyes. Then a huge explosion went off in the middle of the monster flock. Galbraith said that all the spells were about to activate now, which shocked Melvy, and she asked Galbraith if he was joking or not, which made Galbraith laugh. He said, "My fiancé never lets me down," and told her to cheer up because she was going to do great in his city. That stunned Melvy, but Galbraith said that normally it would be impossible to create a magic circle under these conditions, and that this would be their little secret. After that, they looked at the vessel, and the spells activated, causing a massive explosion. Zeeth thought this was overkill in terms of slaughter, while Galbraith was happy that the monsters had been blown to pieces. Then Mulan went up to Galbraith and said to him, "That was amazing." Milfi waved to Mulan, and he did the same. Mulan said to them, "That was close," but he couldn't finish his words because of how intense the light from the spells was. Milfi looked at the fire and thought they had now been turned into pieces. Then they continued flying peacefully again, but Milfi was shocked by something. Galbraith asked Milfi, "Are you okay?" Milfi said she was fine, but she couldn't believe what Galbraith had done. But Galbraith said to her, "What are you talking about?" and told her it was her own cleverness that had saved them. Milfi said to herself that she hadn't expected this at all, that she had been focusing so much on cooking monsters that she hadn't thought about the magical energy extracted as a byproduct, and that it could be used as a weapon to destroy nations. She couldn't believe it had taken her so long to realize that. Then Milfi asked Galbraith, "Do you think my research is forbidden?" This made Galbraith upset, and he told her he wouldn't allow anyone to scold her, and that she could devote herself to her craft, but that it had benefits beyond making weapons. He said the magic power stored in the vials could be used to fuel furnaces, like she always did, and that he wasn't worried about anything. He told her it would be useful in their daily lives, and that they could try it out in their city too. He added that lighting a fireplace usually needed flint or magic, and the vials could be a substitute for that. On top of that, they needed light during their long winter nights. Milfi thought Galbraith was right, and asked him, "If we divide the magic energy into small amounts, does that help make people's lives easier?" Galbraith confirmed that, and said he was sure people would be happy. Milfi told herself that Galbraith was right, that it wasn't necessary to make a weapon, and that they could use it to improve people's lives. She remembered when she used to prepare magic in her own country, and how no one cared about her or her research, and how the magical energy she gathered had to be disposed of or released naturally, and that monsters were a mine of food and other resources. Then she looked at Galbraith and said that he didn't just care about her research, he was also letting her see a new path on the horizon. She thanked him, feeling happy. Galbraith asked her what she was talking talking about, and told her that they had survived thanks to her without getting hurt, and that he was the one who should be thanking her. Milfi said that the spell depended on the strength of the one casting it, and that he was the only one capable of activating that distorted magic circle. Galbraith laughed and told her that this was the result of their teamwork, and said, "My fiancé is doing an excellent job." Milfi said she would make it smaller next time. Galbraith thought that was a good idea, and also thought they could go monster hunting together. This left Milfi completely amazed, and she started imagining the two of them hunting monsters together. She asked herself in surprise, "Will I really go hunting with him?" When she asked him again, he told her, "Of course, I'll let you come with me," which made Milfi feel happy again at having that confirmed. He told her that the gunviner beehives were big at this time of year, and that Zakirt fruits were also nearing their season, which made Milfi overflow with joy. She said, "All those things are in the Urzini forest, of course, right?" And she started explaining everything about those things, because she knew them all and had read about them before. Galbraith said he was glad Milfi was feeling so much better. Suddenly, Caius came over to them, calling out and asking them what had caused that explosion. But when Milfi saw the glowing eagle Caius was riding, she was completely amazed. Galbraith said to Caius that it was good he'd come and told him that Milfi had taken care of the monsters. Caius was surprised that Milfi had taken part in this. Then he was shocked and asked them if he was the one who had caused that explosion. He also asked him how he could use such a reckless spell in Milfi's presence. But Galbraith asked Caius, "Wasn't it great?" This shocked Caius again. Milfi said to herself that she was the one who had created that reckless and violent spell Caius was talking about. Then Caius said that those monsters had been acting really strangely, but Milfi wasn't a knight, and that his acceleration spell alone must have exhausted her a lot, yet she hadn't shown any hesitation. But Milfi said that she had told Galbraith she didn't mind. Caius said, "Even if that's the case." Then Milfi apologized to Caius. After that, a group of Galbraith's knights also gathered and saw that Milfi was there, and they started praising her, which made Milfi feel embarrassed. Galbraith tried to hide Milfi and told them to stop staring. He felt really annoyed and told them to be quiet. When they got close to the castle, Milfi asked Galbraith, "Do you live here?" Galbraith told her that the central building was his, and that the large place wasn't really necessary, but that she could use any room she wanted. Milfi asked if this was his castle, and said she would have believed it was a royal castle if he'd told her that. Galbraith said this was a town, and that generations ago it had been built to fight monsters, and after years had expanded and become the town she was seeing now. He said this was their fortress, and some called it the Fortress City. Milfi said that if this was the Fortress City, then the forest monsters must be coming at it from every direction. Galbraith told her, "Sometimes," and explained that most monsters lived in the grasslands and preyed on the carriages traveling along the trade routes. Even so, he said, their daily lives weren't as dangerous as they used to be. But Milfi saw that the walls were really solid, and she remembered her own country where there were no solid walls like these at all. Galbraith said the forest used to be closer before they shrank their defensive line, and that people had naturally gathered here because the previous dukes had made it their base, and that the constant fear of monster attacks was what had shaped the place. He told her that 17 years ago, survivors of the disaster had flocked here. Milfi saw traces of magic marks and that the ground was badly scorched, and she told herself that the Duke had used his own magic to secure his territory and protect the people of the town. Then Galbraith patted her and told her it wasn't that bad anymore and there was nothing to worry about. Then Mulan and Zeeth came up to Galbraith from both sides. Mulan told Milfi that she was now feeling tired from this trip, but that Zeeth was happy to have her with them. Galbraith said they were going to land, and asked Mulan to tell them to open the military gate. They opened the gate, and Caius came closer to Galbraith and told him he'd wait in the main building, then went off. Galbraith went in through the gate, and after that he told Milfi that there was a magic barrier in the sky above them, so they would be entering from below. He also told her that it used up large amounts of magical energy, so it couldn't be maintained permanently, and that he thought they had put it up because of the flying monsters. Milfi asked Galbraith if it was possible they would launch another attack. Galbraith didn't know, but he had to be careful every day. Then he told her that they had finally arrived, and they entered the city, which left Milfi astonished. There were people waving at Milfi, and she returned the greeting, still amazed by how beautiful the city was. Milfi was astonished to find spiritual places inside the city. She learned from Galbraith that they also abstained from eating monster meat, which made Milfi sad. But Galbraith told her that the knights could spread the idea around, since most of his knights had already eaten monster meat before, even though some of them had gone through bitter experiences because of it, and some of them would no doubt be hesitant at first. This made Milfi very happy, and she said to herself that there were many monsters she still hadn't seen yet, and that she was really excited to see them. Then they landed on the ground, and Galbraith asked Milfi to check her belongings. When she moved forward to inspect her things, she realized someone was looking at her. When she looked behind her, she found the dragon staring at her. After that, the dragon looked in another direction, then turned its gaze back to her. But Milfi figured out that the dragon was actually looking at the bag of salted meat she had prepared. She told the dragon that she understood that it wanted to eat some of the meat. Then Milfi told Galbraith that she wanted to ask him for a favor, and said she wanted to feed his dragon some of their meat because it wanted it so badly. When Galbraith looked at the dragon, he saw its eyes shining intensely. After that, he gave it all the food. which greatly surprised Zeeth and Mulan, because Galbris had given their food to his dragon as well. Then they moved on to the entrance of Galbris's castle. Milphie was walking behind him but stopped because something caught her attention. She saw that in front of the castle there was a river with fish in it. She noticed that these fish were not like the Xana's fish that belonged to the monsters, and that they could probably be eaten as well. But when she looked more closely into the river, she found their appearance strange, which made her very uneasy. Then she realized she hadn't brushed her hair, and that her hair tie had fallen off when she was flying through the air with Galbris, and that she had been looking like this for quite a while. She also imagined that when Galbris introduced her to his family, they would lock her up in prison because of how improper she looked, and that this would make her very sad. Then she snapped back to the present and called out to Galbris before he entered the castle, and told him she wanted to talk to him about something. She was feeling extremely shy, but she realized and said to herself that Galbris wasn't bothered by her frizzy hair and thought it suited her. Still, she felt angry and said that this shouldn't be their first impression of her, because first impressions are very important, and she needed to be brave. But Galbris stepped toward her, thinking she wanted to eat the river fish. Milphie told him they also had that kind of fish in her country, but she had never eaten it before. Galbris told her that in that case, he would make sure she tasted some, which made Milphie happy. But Milphie remembered that this wasn't what she had meant to ask Galbris about, and told him she wanted to make herself look presentable before meeting his family and the others, and that she didn't want to be rude. She asked him to provide her with a place where she could tidy herself up and change her clothes as well. This shocked Galbris, and he apologized to Milphie, saying he couldn't believe how careless he was being after all the scolding Caius had given him. Then he called out to Mulan and told him there was an emergency, so Mulan hurried over to him. Galbris asked him to summon the Blanche Company, which surprised Mulan. Galbris told him, "Call any one of Lillian, Sabrina, or Natalie, any of them will do," and told him to hurry, very angrily. Mulan rushed off quickly. Then Galbris took hold of Milphie and apologized to her a second time for not treating her as kindly as he should have, but Milphie denied that he had treated her badly at all. Then Galbris told Milphie that there were no maids in the place, and that only men had been there for a long time. At that point, Milphie wondered to herself, so the wife of the previous duke isn't here either? But she felt ashamed of herself for neglecting something so fundamental, and that she should have asked him about that instead of asking about monsters. Galbris realized that Milphie was upset, and told her he was very sorry, and that he didn't mean to disrespect her, and that the whole thing was only because they hadn't had a duchess for a very long time, probably not in the last 4 generations. This made Milphie laugh, and then Galbris smiled at her as well. After that, they went to meet the members of the Blanche Company. Galbris told the members of the company that Milphie's words were to be taken as absolute, just like his own, and asked them to keep that in mind. Then the leader of the company introduced herself. Her name was Lucibel. She welcomed Milphie and called her princess, which shocked Milphie a lot, and she was also surprised that this beautiful woman was a knight. But one of the team members said to the team leader that they had agreed to address Milphie as lady. Lucibel, however, thought that was too formal for a young, pretty girl like Milphie. The third member, the one with the blonde hair, agreed with Lucibel, but Milphie asked the company members to just call her Milphie, and said she hoped they would teach her the customs and traditions of this place. Lucibel agreed to that. Then another member introduced herself. She was Lucibel's deputy, and her name was Natalie. The last member also introduced herself. Her name was Lillian, and she told Milphie to ask her for anything she needed. Milphie told them she was very happy to meet them. Then Galbris asked the squad to take very good care of Milphie now that her journey was over, and asked them to help her. Lucibel agreed to this. Then Milphie asked Galbris when she would meet the whole family. Galbris said that the date would be over dinner because it was a suitable time. Then Galbris kissed Milphie's hand, which made her feel extremely shy, and she told him there were people around them, but Galbris told her not to be so shy and pointed toward his room, saying it was next to hers. Then Natalie asked Milphie to step into the room, and Mulan said it was a good thing Caius wasn't here, but Galbris got angry and thought that Mulan was one of his agents. However, Mulan ran off to tell Caius everything. Then Milphie went into the room, and she was very shocked. When she saw the room, she was amazed by how beautiful it was, and she was about to walk in, but she remembered that her shoes were dirty and might stain the carpet. At that point, Lucibel did her duty and lifted Milphie up, which surprised Milphie very much. Lucibel carried her forward and gently set her down on the couch. Lucibel noticed that Milphie was as light as a cat. Then Lucibel asked Milphie if she could take off her shoes for her, but Milphie refused and told her she could do that herself, adding, "This is the problem with handsome people." Then Natalie and Lillian came closer, and Natalie asked Milphie if she preferred any particular kind of dessert, but Milphie told them, "No, thank you for everything," and that she appreciated their precious time and didn't want to take up any more of it. But Lucibel told Milphie that Blanche Company had gotten the privilege of working as her personal guards, and that they were like her sword and shield. She knelt in front of her and asked Milphie to grant them that honor as her knights, and she offered her sword to her. Milphie took Lucibel's sword, drew it, and saw the same seal that was on Galbris's weapon. She told them, "You're knights chosen by Galbris, and it's clear you're trustworthy and highly skilled, but we don't know anything about each other, and your sword is your life, so you shouldn't hand it over to just anyone." Then she gave the sword back to Lucibel. Milphie then asked the team if they had heard the rumors. She told them that she had made a promise with Galbris, and that on her way here she figured out what she should do with Galbraith. So she said, "Lucibel, not yet, not before you accept me as your lady, and consider me worthy of being given your sword." Everyone was staring at Milphie in amazement. Then Lucibel said to Milphie, "All right," and that they would do their best to be worthy of her. Then Milphie asked Lucibel if her sword had been made by the same blacksmith who made Galbraith's sword. Lucibel confirmed to Milphie that it was the same place. Milphie asked for a sword of her own too, and asked Lucibel if she could introduce her to the forge that produced this sword. She begged Lucibel, her eyes shining, and asked her to at least tell her the name of the blacksmith who made it. Then Milphie's luggage was brought in, and Lucibel wanted to comb Milphie's hair. Milphie agreed, and Lucibel started brushing her hair, but she felt she couldn't do it, and thought she wasn't qualified for this. But Milphie asked Lucibel to make her hair fluffy because Galbraith liked it that way, which amazed Lucibel. She told Milphie, "All right, leave this to me," and that it was now her mission, and that it was an important task that had to be completed properly. She told her that after rubbing her hair with scented oil, she'd rinse it and make it fluffy. After Milphie finished washing her hair, she apologized to Lucibel for asking a knight to do this, but Lucibel told her she had no problem with it because she used to do this for her daughter. Milphie was surprised that Lucibel was married and asked her, "Do you really have a daughter?" Lucibel told her, "Of course, I have a daughter and a son." Lucibel went on brushing Milphie's hair and said her daughter looked a lot like Milphie and wanted to be a knight like her, and that her father was very displeased about that. Milphie thought knights were awesome, and Lucibel was proud to be a knight serving Captain Galbraith as well. At the same time, she knew it was hard to serve as a knight in this place. She asked, "And you still wish to draw a sword, Milphie?" But Milphie wanted to do it so she could slaughter monsters. Lucibel was surprised and asked if it was for eating. Milphie confirmed it was for that purpose, and also told her that her relationship with Galbraith had started because he was interested in her experience. Then she told Natalie that she had packed all her work tools in her bags and asked her to look for them for her. Natalie opened Milphie's bag and saw that those tools had been used for a very long time and that the blade had worn down to less than its original size. Milphie told her that this one was for cutting bones and meat. Then Lillian asked Milphie if she really ate monsters, but Natalie covered Lillian's mouth and told her that wasn't a good way to ask. Milphie didn't get angry and said she understood Lillian's curiosity about her eating monsters. She told them that the truth was she had become a monster eater, which amazed Lillian. She said, "So that's how it is, because they weren't allowed to eat them. They said terrible things would happen and that she wasn't ready yet, and they left the monsters when they went out on an expedition." But Lucibel told Lillian to stop and that was enough. Milphie suggested to Lillian that maybe she could offer her a royal model or a Xana's, but only with Galbraith's permission. That made Lillian very happy, and she asked Milphie if monsters were really tasty. Lucibel, however, felt annoyed and apologized to Milphie, then told Lillian to leave, which upset Lillian, and she left. But Milphie asked Lillian to wait, and asked her how old she was. Lillian answered that she had turned 15 this year. Milphie asked Lillian, "In this city, are you considered an adult at that age?" But Lillian told her that adulthood was at 17, but she had entered knighthood, and that made her an adult. Milphie said to herself that Lillian was at a difficult age, and that she knew what she was going through now, because she had read about it as well. Then she asked Lillian if she wanted to try monster meat with her so she could know how tasty it was. The whole team was surprised by this. Then Milphie also asked Lucibel and Natalie if they wanted to join them. Milphie was very excited, and asked them if they wanted to try a particular kind of monster, maybe a beast type, plant type, or fish type monster. She said insect monsters were unusual but very delicious. Lillian said she wanted to try a screamer wood because Mulan had said it was delicious, rich, and juicy, and that he had never eaten such delicious fruit before. But after that, Mulan had stomach pain and a fever, yet he said it was better than fine nectar. This shocked Milphie, and she started writing notes about the screamer wood monster, and said she hadn't seen it before. But after hearing Mulan's opinion of it, she really wanted to try it badly. Lucibel and Natalie were shocked, but Lillian was sharing Milphie's happiness, and they all got excited about it. Then they moved to Galbraith's room, and Galbraith took off all his weapons except for one. Mulan asked Galbraith why he didn't take off that weapon, but Galbraith told him no, because the Eagle Core detachment they'd left there might find something. Mulan saw that Galbraith had a point, but Mulan was bothered by something, and Galbraith sensed this. So Galbraith said to Mulan, "What are you upset about?" Mulan had noticed that Galbraith's room and Melfi's room were connected by an inner door, and he asked Galbraith if he felt nervous about that. But Galbraith didn't have any hidden motives. Then he asked Mulan if he had seen the bird that was leading the flock. Mulan remembered the battle, but Galbraith had never gone through a pursuit like that before, because when he swooped down on the flock, that bird was the only one that didn't move out of his path, and it didn't even fear an ice dragon. Galbraith thought that bird was rabid, and then he started to realize that the bird really was rabid, because when he threw the magic vial, it swallowed it right away without any fear. Then Mulan asked Galbraith, "When did you develop that terrifying spell? I thought I was as good as dead." But Galbraith told Mulan that it was Melfi who made it, and that she had worked very hard on it. Galbraith thought that the results of Melfi's research could be used as a weapon against the country, and he started to think about it in terms of mass-producing such spells. How many people from his city could do this, and how many of them had the full knowledge to form those magic circles? He also thought about protecting Melfi, and that he had to enlist someone he trusted trusted to help him with this, and he trusted Mulan. Then he went up to him and told him he wanted to discuss something with him about that terrifying spell, which surprised Mulan. Then Caius suddenly came in on them, and Galbraith grabbed his sword and pointed it at Caius. But Caius told them that he also wanted to discuss this matter with them, which shocked both Galbraith and Mulan. Then Caius asked Galbraith, "Why are you pointing your sword at my face?" Galbraith said to Caius, "Because you came in so suddenly," and told him not to startle him like that again, and that the door he had come through was the back door and should only be used for emergencies. Then Caius pushed Galbraith's sword aside and struck Galbraith on the head, and told him that his head was the emergency, and asked him, "Why did you direct Melfi to Chiel's room so quickly? You even used acceleration magic to hurry back, just so I could wait at the Great Gate." Then Galbraith apologized to Caius, and told him he did that so Melfi could relax a little. That made Caius angry, and he said, "Of course she should relax. That's why I gathered some maids who serve noble ladies to receive her." Mulan was surprised to find his sister among the maids. Then Caius came closer to Galbraith and said to him, "You didn't leave Melfi in Chiel's room, did you?" Which shocked Galbraith. Then he stood up again and told Caius that he never left Melfi alone, and that he had assigned Company Blanche for her, and that they would be Melfi's personal guard in any case, and there was no harm in letting them meet sooner rather than later. Caius thought that wasn't a bad idea for Galbraith. Then Caius apologized to the maids and told them that Melfi now had Company Blanche, and he asked them if they could wait a bit before bringing another dress and other things for her. Lefrog said to Caius, "You never have to apologize to your mother at all, Caius." Gudrun also said that the Duke had just gotten a little carried away. Sero saw that the Duke loved her and said they were excited to meet her, and she asked Mulan, "Isn't that right, Mulan?" Lefrog suggested that they enjoy some tea together now, and that Sero would eat bread with them too, and they went off. Then Galbraith came closer to Caius and asked him how he could make his own mother a chambermaid, but Caius didn't trust anyone more than his mother, and said that she had a lot of experience from taking care of him when he was little, and that she was perfect for looking after Melfi. Galbraith saw that what Caius said was true. Mulan then asked Caius what his sister was doing among them, since she was basically a baker, but Caius saw Sero as a woman who had gotten married and taken over the family shop after her brother became a knight, and there was no one else left to inherit the shop. Galbraith saw that Sero was very bold, which made Mulan feel embarrassed. Then Caius said that Gudrun was the wife of a knight from the city, but that this was only a temporary job, and that he would pick new maids one day. After that, Caius shut the doors tightly and created a barrier around them so no one could hear them, and he asked them to tell him about that spell. He knew that Galbraith had unlimited magical power, but what was that? He asked Galbraith if he had merged with the Urzen forest because she loved it so much, and he asked him if he should start calling him things like the walking volcano or the magic generator, but Galbraith was very scared by the way Caius was talking to him. Then Caius asked Mulan what he thought, but Mulan didn't know what Caius meant. He remembered, though, that the spell had wiped out all the monsters. Caius said that the spell that blew up the monster flock had been made by Melfi, which shocked Mulan because of that huge explosion. Galbraith saw that Melfi had been desperate to save him, and that she had used the magic power of the Xanas. Mulan asked, "Is that the Xanas we ate for breakfast?" Galbraith confirmed this and told them that Melfi had written down every spell that came to her mind on the vessel and handed it to him, and he had only thrown it. Mulan couldn't believe this and wondered if Melfi was a genius or what. Galbraith said, "Of course Melfi is a genius." Galbraith explained that most modern spells are simplified, smooth flowing incantations, while it's said that ancient spells are wisdom granted to people by spirits in old times, and that this is abandoned magic that hardly anyone studies anymore. But Melfi had taught herself and managed to draw those magic circles, and she was undoubtedly a genius. He said to Caius that he was supposed to take care of Melfi's research materials, and Caius was very careful with them. He had also placed additional seals on the vial that contained the magic power of the royal model. Galbraith thought that would do for now, and that there were plenty of peaceful uses for it. Asked him not to tell anyone what he had heard until they settled the matter later. Mulan confirmed that he would never tell anyone at all, and asked Galbraith, "Why are you telling me this?" Galbraith revealed that he wanted Mulan to protect Melfi together with Company Blanche, and that he would continue as a dragon knight, but he would protect Melfi if necessary. Mulan wondered, isn't Melfi safe in Midlag? But Galbraith was very afraid for her, and he wouldn't stop her research if it allowed them to eat monsters safely. That would change the city for the better, and he was counting on Mulan for this, which made Mulan really fired up. Then Caius removed the barrier, and Galbraith started thinking that he would talk to Melfi about this. He was sure she was a good person, but she might not understand that there are people ready to use her research for evil, and that he had to protect her. Then Caius drew his sword and asked Galbraith to talk, and he started walking toward Galbraith and said to him, "While I was gone, you ate without me." Galbraith was in shock and saw that Caius wasn't smiling at all. Then Caius struck Galbraith and asked him, "Why did you do that?" But Galbraith was still holding the sword so he wouldn't get hurt. Asked, "What exactly are you talking about?" Caius told him, "I'm talking about the Xanas that Melfi prepared." Then he looked at Mulan and asked him if he ate it too. Mulan answered, in shock, "Of course." Then Caius realized that the Xanas was in season and that they had eaten it without him. Mulan and Galbraith were very scared of Caius, but then one of the knights came and told him that there was something going on. Then we switched to Galbraith with Melfi, and he told her that some bird-type monsters had attacked. Melfi asked, Is this so urgent that he has to launch a raid to take them down? But Kaya sees this as a daily occurrence in the city. Galbraith told Melfi that he had planned to take her on an introductory tour, and he apologized because this happened right when she arrived. Melfi said it was fine and asked Galbraith if there was anything she could do to help them. But Galbraith told her he wished he could stay with her, but those monsters were rabid and might attack other towns or villages, and he asked her to wait for him here and that he would take care of them. Melfi said, "All right, your highness," but Galbraith grabbed Melfi by the hair and told her, "No, you know what you're supposed to call me, don't you?" Which embarrassed Melfi a lot, and she asked him to stop right away, which made Galbraith laugh. He told her he didn't want to embarrass her at all, but Melfi asked him not to catch her off guard like that. Then Galbraith asked Melfi if she remembered the Duke's duties. Melfi said, "They're to appreciate and soothe the Duke," but Galbraith told her not to be upset with him, then hugged her, because he found her cute side comforting to him, and he asked her to give him a bit of warmth. Natalie covered Lillian's eyes because she was still young, but Melfi told him she would make him normal food, and Galbraith said, "All right, as long as it's tasty, I don't mind," and that he found it motivating to imagine that he'd be going out to look for ingredients. Melfi said to herself that Galbraith was insisting he wanted monster meat, and the same was confirmed by Blanche's group and the other knights. She also told herself that they would gladly accept her research. Then Galbraith asked Melfi if there was any kind of monster she was interested in, and that he would hunt one while he was out. But Melfi thought it would be rude to pick a huge monster, and that he was already going to kill the rabid bird. In the end, after thinking, she asked him to bring her a scrimwood fruit, which shocked everyone. Lillian got really excited. Then Melfi stepped closer to Galbraith and told him, "You said you ate it before," and she sighed and told him that this fruit had a strong smell. But Mulan felt it was sweeter than nectar. She asked Mulan, but Mulan denied it and asked Melfi where she heard that. Melfi told Mulan, "That's a secret," and asked him if he was sure it was scrimwood fruit. Mulan confirmed it and told her that was it, and that maybe it was overly ripe since the fruit was black. But it was fragrant and sweet, and his whole mouth was filled with overwhelming happiness. But he ate too much of it and felt horribly exhausted afterward. Melfi told Galbraith that it didn't have to be one of his priorities, and that the most important thing for her was for Galbraith to come back safe. But Galbraith still agreed to bring the fruit, and he told the knights that they had to set out now. Then he hugged Melfi and said he'd take this as an advance payment. Before he left, he told her that he had requested that her research materials be moved to a private room, and he asked Lucibel to guide her there. He said goodbye to her and left with the knights. The next day, Melfi woke up, and Lucille saw that Melfi hadn't slept well. But Melfi said that the flying monsters had attacked them very fiercely yesterday, and that it wasn't just that, but that it had been a rabid flock. She told herself she had thought about offering another magic vial like the previous one, but the only one she had left now was specifically for the royal model. She started thinking a lot, and realized that if it was used, it might hit Galbraith and the knights because its energy was so dense. She hated that all she could do was wait, but Lucibel told Melfi that this wasn't a problem, and that Galbraith would come back soon. She told her she needed to have breakfast, and that she also needed to welcome Galbraith with a bright smile. Melfi agreed to that. Then they moved to another room, and Lucibel told Melfi that this was the room Galbraith had asked her to guide her to. Lucibel opened the door for her, and told her this room would be her private research lab. Melfi went into the room and was happy to see there were other things besides her materials. She picked up one of the books, and saw that it was a collection of interesting books, but she didn't feel interested today because Galbraith was away. Blanche's team noticed this, and Melfi stayed a bit sad and very much alone. After 3 days passed, she heard that Galbraith had returned to the castle, which surprised her, and she ran toward him and hugged him. Galbraith told her he was sorry for being late, and told her he had brought her something and that he found something interesting in the forest, and that he had brought her scrimwood fruit and would have it sent to her room. But he needed a nap, and he got sleepy while he was with her. Then we moved to Melfi's room, and she had the scrimwood fruit that Galbraith brought her, but its smell was really awful. She told them she would leave the red one outside for now, and Blanche's team agreed immediately. Then Melfi brought out her special vessel, and started absorbing the magical energy from the scrimwood fruit into the vessel. Lucibel asked if that liquid was the magical energy, and Melfi nodded and said, of course, that was it. But Melfi said to herself that extracting the energy from this thing was extremely hard, and that she couldn't spare the effort to respond, and that tree monsters don't actually die unless they completely wither or burn until they turn to ash, but their fruit can't be eaten once it withers. After Melfi finished completely absorbing the magical energy, she was encouraged by Blanche's team. Natalie couldn't believe how fragrant it was after extracting the magical energy, and Lillian asked her if it was different from when she ate one. Lucibel said it used to have a shockingly bad smell that wasn't enough to describe how horrible it was, but it wasn't this black. Natalie said it looked just like the one they had put outside, and that they had been tricked by its appearance. Then Melfi went closer to the fruit, and said that it was black and not appetizing, but that she was craving to bite into it, and they were all craving it too. Lillian asked Melfi if she had now completely finished draining the energy, and Melfi confirmed that she had extracted all the energy inside the fruit, but that some energy was stored inside the seed within it, and that they had to remove the pulp so it wouldn't leak. She showed them the measuring device, and decided she needed to measure how much magical energy the pulp still contained using this tool, which caused Blanche's group to be amazed by this. After that, Melfi tried to stick the device into the fruit, but couldn't do it, so Lillian asked Melfi to let her try instead. But when Lillian used her own knife, she couldn't cut the fruit. Then Lucibel told Lillian to use the lower part of the knife, not the upper part, and said that she would show her how to do it. And indeed, Lucibel managed to use the knife successfully, and told Lillian to do exactly as she did so she could pierce the fruit. After that, Lillian used the knife the correct way, and managed to make a gap in the fruit. She asked Milphie if that was good enough for her or not. Milphie said it was very good and thanked her. Then Lillian asked Milphie if she had done well, and Milphie told her, "Of course, you're very good." Milphie then started getting ready to measure the magical energy, and Lucibel asked Milphie how she was going to measure magical energy with that device. Milphie said that this tool detects the magical energy when it penetrates it, and that there's a tiny hole inside this needle, and also a magic circle inside the device itself that activates. Natalie thought this was very well made. Lucibel asked Milphie if she was the one who made this device, and Milphie confirmed that she was the one who created it, because the purpose was for everyone to be able to eat monsters safely, so it would be pointless if she hoarded all the knowledge. Then Milphie stuck the device into the fruit and said that everyone should have this tool so they can eat monsters safely. At that moment, Lucibel saw a red light appear in the device, and Milphie realized that the fruit still contained a large amount of magical energy. Lucibel thought they should remove the seed inside it, so she cut the fruit into 2 halves. When they saw the inside, all of them started drooling over the fruit. Lucibel said this one was different from the one they had eaten before, and Natalie agreed, because the previous one had been greenish-yellow, and its smell had also been unique. Milphie then asked them if they had noticed anything else. Lucibel said that it hadn't caused any of them hallucinations, paralysis, or poisoning, so they had swallowed it, and the purification water had treated the hidden symptoms. But Natalie remembered that its smell had been bad, and that she didn't remember its flavor. Milphie then assumed that the red fruit they had now wasn't ripe yet. Milphie removed the seed, and used the measuring device again, but this time there was nothing at all. She then offered the fruit to them, since now they could eat it without it causing any illness. Milphie said she would start eating it first to make sure it was free of poison, but Lucibel told her that she shouldn't do that, so she wouldn't end up missing the class, and then the Duke would make a huge fuss. Lillian wanted to be the first to try it, but Lucibel told her that she shouldn't either, because she was still a child. Natalie told Lucibel that she also had children and shouldn't do it either. While they were arguing about it, Lillian went ahead and took a bite of the fruit, which shocked everyone. But Lillian told them it was really delicious, and she was amazed by the taste of the fruit, which shocked everyone again. After that, Milphie told them, "Alright then, let's start eating it." When Milphie tasted the fruit, she was astonished again, and remembered how she had talked about it before, saying it was better than fine nectar. Usually, when eaten raw, fruits can have an intense sharp sweetness, but that was absent in this fruit. Milphie was really enjoying eating it. While Lillian was eating the fruit, Lucibel asked her if it was safe to eat. Lillian told her, "Of course it's safe. You two should eat it." When they tasted it, they were extremely shocked and ended up eating a lot of it. Then Lillian thanked Milphie, but Milphie told Lillian, "I'm the one who should be thanking you, because you're the one who brought what Mulan said, and if not for that, I wouldn't have done this." Milphie then decided she would present this fruit to Galbraith. Lillian asked Milphie if she thought he would like it, and Milphie assured her he would love it very much because it was delicious. Lillian could see that Milphie was very happy, and Milphie was indeed delighted, and couldn't wait to share this fruit with Galbraith, because he'd had a bad experience with this fruit before, and she wanted to erase those bad memories. Then Milphie put a piece of wood over the fruit. Lillian wondered why she had put it there. Milphie told her it was to protect the surface of the fruit from the air, and also to keep the fruit fresh, and that she would place the vial as well to cool it down. Lillian thought that was amazing. Then Lucibel and Natalie apologized to Milphie. Lucibel told her that they hadn't believed her, even though she had pledged loyalty to her, and still ended up doubting her. Natalie hadn't expected Milphie to be this serious. Milphie told them not to apologize, that they didn't know much about her, and she didn't blame them for what they had thought. She told them that it was possible she might plan evil deeds. Lucibel asked her, "What kind of evil deeds?" Milphie opened the windows and said, "Like this." Lucibel thought Milphie would do something like a mischievous child, but Milphie said she wanted to scatter dragon manure all over the yard. Natalie thought that might ruin the fertilizer, but Milphie told them she would monopolize all the delicious monsters for herself. Lillian then asked Milphie how her heart could allow her to do such a thing, which made the rest of the team laugh at both Milphie and Lillian. Then Milphie said she might eat a dragon without anyone's permission, and maybe she would say again that she hated the Duke and go back to her own country. But Galbraith happened to be there at that moment and heard what Milphie said, which shocked everyone when they saw him. Galbraith asked Milphie if she was really going to do that, which shocked everyone again, and Milphie was extremely stunned. Galbraith felt this was a twist of events, and asked her if he had done something that deserved her anger, but Milphie told him she had been speaking hypothetically, and that it was impossible for her to ever hate him at all. Galbraith told her not to worry, that he was used to being hated, but Milphie told him that she really didn't feel that way toward him, not at all. She asked herself in embarrassment, "What should I do now? I ended up hurting him so much." Then Lucibel told Galbraith that she was the one who made Milphie say that, and that she had asked her what kind of evil deeds she might do. Natalie told Galbraith that Milphie had asked them to judge whether she was worthy of standing by his side, and that there had been a veil over their eyes. Lillian said that Milphie had just wanted to eat a delicious fruit and share its taste with everyone, but Milphie asked Lillian not to mention that. Galbraith asked Milphie, "Isn't that right, Milphie?" Then Lillian asked Milphie to show Galbraith the smile she always had on her face when she talked about him. Galbraith asked Lillian if she was being serious. Lillian confirmed that she was, exactly, and that Milphie's eyes would shine like a lover's. Milphie asked Lillian to stop talking now because she was feeling embarrassed, which made Galbraith laugh. Milphie felt that Galbraith had gotten the upper hand over her now, and that he was showing his mischievous side. She tried to run away from him, but Galbraith caught her, apologized to her, and told her that he really had been bothering her, and that he wished that had been all there was to it. But he heard her enjoying herself and felt a bit abandoned. Then Milphie apologized to Galbraith, saying she shouldn't have said that as a joke. Galbraith knew she'd been joking, but when he heard it, his heart was hurt, and he blamed himself because he had eavesdropped on them. Then Milphie asked Galbraith how he even got in here in the first place. Galbraith told her, "From this door. I never told you before that this room and my room are connected by an inner door." He asked her not to misunderstand and said he would keep it closed most of the time. He also told her he had brought her a gift. Milphie thought he had only brought her fruit, but Galbraith had brought her something else, and had wanted to surprise her. Then he showed her a puppy called Sirius, which left Milphie very surprised, and she asked Galbraith where he got this puppy. Galbraith told her that he had rescued them when monsters were attacking him in the forest. Everyone was amazed at how beautiful the puppy was. Then Milphie asked Galbraith how this puppy became a protector of the country. Galbraith said that the first duke of the city had one of them, and Sirius became a symbol of the family. Milphie wondered what they were supposed to feed this puppy. Galbraith said he tried to feed it meat and milk, but it wasn't very drawn to the meat, and that he had never raised a Sirius pup before and didn't know what was right. Milphie suggested they feed it monster meat then. Galbraith thought that, since he himself grew up in the wild, that sounded reasonable, and that he would try feeding the puppy dragon meat. Then he asked Blanche to have it brought, and Lucibel went to get it. Natalie asked Lillian to come with them, but Lillian told her she wanted to watch the puppy a bit longer. Still, she went with them. Then Milphie and Galbraith sat together alone, and Galbraith began to pat Milphie's hair, which made Milphie feel embarrassed. Milphie told Galbraith that putting his hand on the puppy would be better for him, but Galbraith told her he preferred to put it on her hair. Then Milphie asked Galbraith if he was hungry, and he told her that yes, he really was hungry. Milphie offered him a piece of fruit, and Galbraith said he didn't remember any pleasant memories linked to fruit, but that this smell was promising. Milphie was sure she would surprise him. When Galbraith ate the fruit, Milphie asked him how it tasted. Galbraith told her it was really wonderful, that the taste worked miracles on his exhausted body, and that he could probably eat this forever. Then Galbraith fed Milphie, and Milphie said, "The taste of joy is sweet." After that, Lucibel prepared food for the puppy, and the puppy ran to its food, which surprised Lillian and Milphie as well. Milphie wondered when this puppy would grow up. Galbraith said it would become independent in about a year, and that it needed to eat 4 meals a day. Lillian said they wore this emblem with pride, and she asked Milphie if she had ever seen a mature Sirius before. Milphie told her no, only in the encyclopedia. Lucibel stayed next to the puppy until it finished all its food. But then the puppy started moving in a certain way, which shocked Lucibel, and she asked Lillian to bring a disposable rag because the puppy was about to relieve itself. Galbraith said they would be in trouble if they couldn't find its mother. Milphie asked Galbraith how long he planned to keep it, but Galbraith intended to set it free once it could find its own food. Still, it would be hard to take care of it. Then Milphie asked Galbraith, didn't the first duke tame a Sirius dog? But Galbraith told her that was just a legend. Milphie told herself that even so, maybe it was possible with Sirius. Then the puppy started playing with Lucibel, and Lucibel wondered what it wanted. Lillian told Lucibel that it really loved her a lot. Galbraith told Lillian, "You were like this as a child when you followed Blanche from place to place, saying you wanted to become a knight," which embarrassed Lillian a lot. She said she hadn't followed her, which made Galbraith laugh at her. Then he told them that 6 months had already passed since Natalie's workshop made a sword for her, and that if Blanche allowed it, he would take her on a short ride, which made Lillian very happy. Milphie wondered if the blacksmith's workshop had made Galbraith's sword. Galbraith said that Lucibel's husband is named Galio, and that he is the head blacksmith there. Galbraith asked Lucibel if she hadn't told her. Lucibel said Milphie had seemed very interested, but she wasn't sure if she had the right to say anything. Galbraith thought that was fair, and asked Lucibel what she thought of Milphie. Lucibel said Milphie used swords with great care and skill, and that even Galio, if he saw that, would agree with her. At least she thought he would, but her husband was a stubborn man. Milphie told herself that now she understood that Galio made things only for those he accepted. Galbraith said that even if he talked to him, Galio would ask to meet her in person, and that Galbraith might ask him to get to know her. Milphie wondered to herself if he would approve of her skill if he saw her slay a monster. But Lucibel told Milphie that Galio was not only grumpy, he also had a sharp tongue, and might be rude with her if he met her. Galbraith asked Milphie what she thought, and Milphie decided she would meet him. After that, Milphie started getting ready for her first public appearance, and the servants helped her with that. Caius's mother asked her to stay natural. Then Milphie looked into the mirror excitedly and told herself, "Let's go, Milphie."